Wolfpack, what is going on? It's your boy, the Wolf of Brodo Street. BrodoStreetJournal.com, we breed and feed you fantasy wolves. Here with your Week 4 Sunday sit-start show. Let's go. Nearly a quarter of the way through the 2024 season. I cannot believe we're saying that. It is so fast. In a blink of an eye, the season comes and it goes, and we are so excited to be here to help you continue plowing forward the right way. Whether you're 1-3, 3-1, 4-0, by the end of this, there's no giving up the hope. Let's go. Let's get these questions right for you. Thank you again so much for spending your Sunday mornings over here with me. Glad to answer all the questions we get. Looks like we already have like 30 in the mailbag before we go live. Let's go. We've answered about 200 questions every single week so far this year. Would love to keep breaking records. And we've also hit 1,000 viewers, subsequent viewers live with us for 3 straight weeks, and we'd love to keep that trend going. So a quick, easy way as you guys are getting in here, getting those questions answered, a quick thumbs up is so greatly appreciated if you like the content. As always, we'll start away with a few quick Thursday night football notes. There wasn't a ton to take away from this Giants and Cowboys flag fest. My God, how many penalties can we get in one game? But the biggest takeaway for me was King Malik Neighbors. I mean, we just wrote an article, Kevin the intern over there wrote redrafting round 1 in 2025. What are we going to project that to look like? Malik Neighbors was number 4 in his overall, not wide receiver 4, overall top 12 for 2025 fantasy drafts. And I don't know that I necessarily disagree. At minimum, a clear-cut top 5 receiver the rest of the rookie season for this guy. 15 targets, 12 catches, 112 yards in the game. The only thing he didn't do was get into the end zone, but you can't be complaining with that type of volume and that type of production. The guy is an absolute animal, King Malik. And ultimately, what I saw was he caught 9 of those 12 balls after using motion per next gen stats. That's the most a receiver has ever caught in a game off of motion. And the big takeaway there is just Brian Daboll is doing whatever he can to get this guy free, to get this guy open. And you can have whatever complaints you want about Daboll. And certainly Malik Neighbors took some tough hits. I feel like he shouldn't be put into harm's way quite as much. But hey, 15 targets, like you're being used as the running back, an extension of the running game in many ways too. He did ultimately you got to check on a concussion. But the week he said, I'm fine, I'm good to go. It was a Thursday night game. My expectation is he's going to be fine moving forward. But either way, just what a performance. You got to, of course, be wary of the concussion. But it sounds like everything should be okay to go there. In terms of any other notes, I mean, as big of a target hog as Neighbors was, not far behind, Wan'Dale Robinson, a PPR scam, 14 targets, 11 catches for 71 yards. I got a lot of questions on him, me and the truth, on Thursday. And I've seen that he's had some really nice target shares, but you look at the final production, it's like, all right, 6 half PPR points, 5.9 half PPR points. But if you have a full PPR league, and even in half at this point, I do think I need to start giving more credence and more consideration to Wan'Dale Robinson, because this is a trend here. And 18 points, again, it's as scammy as it seems. 11 catches, 71 yards, a very low yards per reception. Not really there at this point, the production. But hey, you're getting those 11 catches. You play to your formats. If you have him in a full PPR especially, Wan'Dale is very usable moving forward. And even in half, I think with the bye week crunches coming here, that I need to start giving Wan'Dale a little bit more consideration. Over on the Cowboys side, I thought the biggest note was Rico Dowdle playing over half the snaps and well over half the touches, 11 carries, 46 yards. Not great, but he did add that 15-yard receiving touchdown. Looking nice, looking spry on it, compared to Zeke Elliott, who had just 5 carries, 19 yards. So doubling him up at 12 touches to 6 touches. Rico Dowdle, he is continuing his ascent in this backfield. The only annoying thing is on third downs, we're getting this creature. What's his name? Some fullback here. Hunter Lupke is the name. I might have mispronounced it. I have no idea. I hope I mispronounce it. Screw Hunter Lupke. He's going to certainly cap. If this is how they're going to do things, is rotate about 2/3 of the early downs to Rico Dowdle, 1/3 to Zeke, but then a third down fullback comes in to pass protect. It's going to really cap the upside of any of these guys here. But still nice to see Dowdle, and ultimately so far outperforming Zeke by a mile this year. Maybe, just maybe, we see that turn into a 70% workload. Certainly well worth holding on to, even though it is a little bit gross. And the only other backfields to take a note on the Giants, so disappointing for Devin Singletary. I know if you were here on Thursday, I likely told you to play him. I had him in my top 20 running backs. the Cowboys were getting bludgeoned on the ground on most points to backs by nearly 8 fantasy points, over 30 fantasy points per game to running backs. And what does he do? 14 carries, 24 yards, less than 2 yards a pop. Wow. No touchdowns. He does get a 14-yard catch, but a horrendous effort. 4 points in most formats here for you. Not what you were expecting. Still, he's been so damn productive. Still played right around 70% of the snaps. A little worrisome that he couldn't get more done. Yes, I agree. And ultimately, Tyron Tracy did actually look a little bit of juice here. Ultimately, not on his carries, 4 carries for 2 yards. So nobody was getting anything going on the ground for this Giants team against this Cowboys front that somehow just decided they can stop the run this week. But he had a 19-yard reception where he was really weaving through the traffic. Remember, this is a converted X-receiver with 4.3 speed and size. An intriguing stash in very, very deep leagues. Other than that, I think you can cut Brandon Cooks. Certainly, you could have cut him weeks ago, but if you're somehow still lingering there, 4 targets, 1 catch, 16 yards. Tolbert, mediocre as well. Still better. 3 targets, 3 catches, and 24 yards, but nothing that you could have ever used. Hopefully, you didn't use him. We said to bench him in most formats. And then we got Jake Ferguson going 7 targets, 7 catches, 49 yards. Solid day. For a tight end, that is about as good as it's going to get this year. So if you have Jake Fergie, he's in my rest of season top 3 tight ends. CeeDee Lamb, of course, just barely missing. Still hasn't hit 100 yards this season, 98 yards and a touchdown, 8 targets, 7 catches. Looking damn good. It was a fine day for Prescott, 16 points. He just didn't really need to do much. That wraps up my Thursday night football takeaways. If you had a specific question, though, about somebody in that game you think I missed, please do let me know. But let's now hit all the news. My man Campanelli is keeping his eyes peeled for any super chats. That is a great and a very appreciated way of both supporting your boy, but also you get to cut the line. So if at any point you're in here, you got to get running, a small super chat is so greatly appreciated, and it will get you ahead of the line. But a free way to also support your boy is a quick thumbs up button. If you're on YouTube, you're on Twitter, the likes, the shares, the retweets, it really does help us get out to more people and is so greatly appreciated, guys. Thank you again for spending your Sunday morning here with me. Let's get to 1,000 yet again. Now, week 4 quarterback news. We do have some interesting notes here. Quarterback Jordan Love is expected to play here against the Vikings. One of the best games. I cannot wait for that. Matt LaFleur may be the best offensive play caller in the game. Maybe Brian Flores the best defensive play caller in the game. What happens when the immovable force meets the unstoppable object, or whatever the hell. I think I completely mixed that up, but you know what I'm going for here. We're getting a banger of an actual NFL game, fantasy-wise, too. This is great news for Jayden Reed, who's averaged, this is crazy, 19.9 fantasy points per game across his last 9 games with Jordan Love as his quarterback. That would be the wide receiver 5 right now in fantasy. He has the most fantasy points over expectation in that span. He has the most fantasy points per route run in that span. Ahead of the next closest guys are Deebo Samuel and Tyreek Hill. Pretty damn good company for Jayden Reed to be keeping here. So great to see Jordan Love for him. There was a note here. Malik Willis might mix in here during the game to keep the defense guessing, because Jordan Love might not be at a full 100%. So if I have another option, I would play it over Jordan Love. He is my QB 15, so it is right in the range. Like I have him just ahead of Geno Smith, for example, because the upside does outweigh the risk once you get down to that range. But in a league where I have Jordan Love, I picked up Jared Goff was out there, so I was like, I'll eat the safety here. Jared Goff always seems to shoot out there with the Seahawks. I'll play it safe that way. But just good for all those weapons. Reed, Dobbs, who continues to lead this team in routes run and targets, out there on a lot of waiver wires. Go get him now. Christian Watson, I've seen getting dropped. And yeah, I get it. It's very frustrating, but he's still healthy right now. Not a lot of people could say that. And ultimately, I think he is not playable this week, but worth seeing how he does now with his QB back. And I also really like, again, tight end so bad. Tucker Kraft, the clear-cut number 1 tight end here. They absolutely love him there in Green Bay. I wouldn't be shocked now that Jordan Love is back if we see Tucker Kraft become one of those every week usable tight ends. So all the Packers on the rise here with Jordan Love back in the lineup, even though, again, he might be a little sketchy himself to trust. Justin Herbert, he is questionable for today against the Chiefs. Unfortunately, it's a 4 p.m. game, but it's also, why do you even really care in terms of starting him? You shouldn't be. He's averaging 10 points per game right now, fantasy-wise, with Jim Harbaugh there. And ultimately, we said this, that he was a fade for us. We said, do not draft this guy. It's going to be a run-heavy scheme. It's even worse, honestly, than I had imagined for Herbert, who's looking okay efficiency-wise. That's exactly what we said. Might actually do wonders for him real-life-wise, but ultimately not looking like a great fantasy pressure. Now, this would be the type of game where you got the Chiefs on the other side, hopefully pushing you, that you'd expect more pass attempts. Potentially, you can use Herbert, but he is, despite questionable, expected to play despite a setback. But you got none of his tackles here this week. Banged up line. Just takes one bad hit for him. You have the bye week next week. I'm honestly shocked they're playing him, not going to lie. So ultimately, you can't be starting this guy in fantasy. It is more so like, can you now use Ladd McConkey? Could you now use Quentin Johnson? They get a bump up. There's no doubt about it. If it's Easton Stick starting, you can't even sniff a start there. But it's just like, if Herbert gets knocked out early, those guys go right back to, you shouldn't have even sniffed starting him. So let me know if you need a desperation plug-in for any of those types of weapons. I love Michael Wilson today. I think he's the #1 wide receiver stream of the week. But there's other guys like Trey Tucker, who out there in 95% of leagues, who's just had a 7-catch, 96-yard and a touchdown day. And Devontae Adams is now not playing. So there's definitely options at wide receiver. I don't think we have to work through the weeds of this gross Charger situation right now. And then Tyler Huntley will be getting the start for the Dolphins against the Titans. This is good news. I don't want to poo-poo this and say, oh, great, a trash bag's coming in a quarterback to replace another trash bag, because he's not a trash bag. We've seen Tyler Huntley be okay as an NFL starter in his career. Now, that being said, I think a lot of people are crowning this as a savior. Tyler Huntley, oh my God, Tyreek to the moon, and Jaylen Waddle, I can finally use him again, right? I mean, maybe. Certainly is a bump up. There's no doubt about it. I'm not going to pretend it's not. But when you look at Tyler Huntley in 11 career starts, he's only thrown for 200 or more yards 3 of those 11 games. He has 7 total touchdowns across his 11 games passing, and only 1 multi-touchdown effort, a 2-touchdown game. That was his career high, was 270 and 2. And both those touchdowns going to Mark Andrews. If any of you remember, Andrews having that crazy stretch run. Now, I get it. This was a different Ravens team. It was run heavy. It was Greg Roman who were bemoaning for Justin Herbert. So you can't compare apples to oranges. It's a different scheme, different weapons. He could be more productive here. And I ultimately think he's somebody that can at least get the ball out on schedule, get it to the receivers, understands when pressure's coming. It's going to be a boost for this entire offense for this team. I think the Dolphins in general are a good bet to win now when they have Tyler Huntley at QB. But I wouldn't be suddenly vaulting Tyreek Hill right back into the top 5, no-brainers. I do think you play him. I think Jaylen Waddle is still on my bench until I see how this develops, though, because I think it's going to be very conservative. They're going to run the ball far more often. I think it's a nice little boost to Achane. A lot of dump-offs in Tyler Huntley's young career here. The thing, though, is he does like to scramble, too. So it's a good thing for this offense, real-life-wise, fantasy-wise, a minor boost, in my opinion. But let us know if you have like a Tyreek Hill sit start, a Jaylen Waddle sit start. It's a boost, but I'd say rather play Michael Wilson this week, for example, than Jaylen Waddle. So that might give you a little measuring stick for how I'm feeling heading into this one. That wraps up our quarterback news. We'll pack 300 of you here in the first 10 minutes. You love to see it. That means we are on pace for that usual 1,000 plus viewers. If you don't mind hitting that quick like button, we're going to be through our news in about 5 to 10 more minutes, and then we will be hitting all your questions. We got like 40 of them already. You love to see it. I think we're going to break the 200 question record today. Fingers crossed. Let's go. But a thumbs up button helping us get out to more people would be so greatly appreciated. If you like what you're hearing, a like, a share, a retweet, all that good stuff. And of course, any subscribers. We'd love to have the pack continue to grow here. In terms of running back news, not playing today, but Christian McCaffrey, he has returned from getting treatment on his Achilles in Germany. Who knows what they did over there, but let's hope they rub some magic beans, whatever the hell it is, because I would love this guy to get back into lineups. They did say, Kyle Shanahan, that McCaffrey is going to start hitting his recap here harder on Monday. He would be eligible to come back in week 6. I still think it's a little bit of a long shot, but hey, you never know. Maybe you got the stem cell thing. A lot of people comparing it to the Kobe knee treatment. We will find out. We certainly don't know quite yet what this is going to be. But ultimately, it's good to hear a positive note. It's all been negative. Now, I've gotten a ton of questions on, do I sell McCaffrey? Do I buy McCaffrey? What do I do? And I do think it is very, very owner dependent. It's a great thing to be thinking through, because if you're 3-0 right now, you're really rolling, and you have a little bit of excess bench stuff that you think you could move one of your, I'm trying to think of the right type of comparison here. Maybe even James Conner, a great win now asset for a guy that the McCaffrey team is 1-3 at the end of this week. I might go for it. It could be a worthy dice roll, because at some point the James Conner train is likely to crash and get off the rails with an injury, and that owner might be desperate and need to win now, it could pay off big for you if you're in that position. But all that being said, if you're the CMC owner, do you sell him? Again, are you 3-0? You're 2-1. You're holding on. You're not going to get fair value at this point for a guy that the second half of the season could be a 20-point per game asset. Last year, since he joined Carolina, he's been over 20 fantasy points in all but 3 starts. 17 of 20 games. It's like an 85% hit rate. He's only been outside the top 12 running backs one time since joining the 49ers the past year and a half. It's crazy. The production is so good. But of course, the risk is significantly high right now. So it is a balancing act here. But I would say if you are in a position, you're 2-1, you're 3-0, you feel good about your squad, I'd be more of a buyer. Now, I'm coming from a bias angle as somebody who has CMC who doesn't have to sell him right now. I'm 2-1. I'm feeling okay. I think I can carry on maybe 3-2. I mean, ideally 5-1 by the time, week 6 rolls around. We'll see. But I'm in the market for CMC if I could potentially get there. Let me know, though, if you have should I trade this for that? Is CMC worth it? But of course, if his owner is desperate right now, definitely consider something of that nature. Now, I'm going to keep going with the running back news, but we did get a super chat. Thank you so much, Anthony Fella, for your support. Always great to see you here. All the 3-0 teams. The least surprising news of the day is Fella is 3-0. You are consistently a wolf, my friend. It's so great to see you killing it yet again this year. I'm sure you'll be dueling it out over there in the finals, the same as it ever is, the epic battle between you two. Pick one for the flex full PPR. Zach Moss, Dalton Kincaid, or Michael Wilson. Thanks as always. A lot of interesting options here. And in full PPR, it changes it a bit for me. Although I look at Zach Moss and I see 80% of the touches, 80% of the snaps, and you get Carolina, a top 5 matchup for running backs. The guy is just coming off like a 17-point day himself. I have to play Zach Moss here. It's just the most guaranteed. As much as I do like Michael Wilson, you got that Commanders matchup. You got no Trey McBride. He was working the middle of the field so well last week. There's a lot to love about Michael Wilson this week as a streamer. Kincaid coming off his best game of the season, too. A lot of good options here. But to me, you're going to get 15 to 20 touches out of Zach Moss. They're coming in a beautiful matchup here. I guess the only risk with Moss is how damn good Chase Brown looks compared to him. And I know Chase Brown has terrible vision, but once he finally does find space, the explosiveness is off the charts. It's significantly night and day between who has more explosivity between Chase Brown and Zach Moss. There is the chance that at some point that flips. And I think it's going to probably happen without notice that, all right, the team just decided to roll out Chase Brown today. They wanted to get more touches to their explosive young back. And we might not even get a report. We might not get any indication. It might just happen, and then we have to deal with it as Zach Moss owners. But for now, until I hear otherwise, until I see otherwise, I'm believing that Zach Moss is one of the rare 80% plus bell cows in the league. I know they're 0-3, but it's still one of the better offenses in the league too. So I'm going to roll Zach Moss here. Anthony Fella, thank you so much for the super chat, for your support. It is so greatly appreciated. And I'm so glad again to see that you are killing it right now. Let's go, baby. All righty, back to the running back news. And again, I do this just to make sure you guys are fully informed, to help feed any questions you might hear in News Nugget. It's like, maybe you might hear a CMC blurb. Maybe I should ask about trading for this guy. What would you think on these 3 running backs? Who would you give up for CMC if you could? Those type of questions might pop up as we go through it. I don't do it to be annoying or because I love the sound of my own voice. I hate it. I absolutely despise my own voice. I don't know how I'm still doing this because of how much I hate my own voice. But hey, we're going to continue forward. Mike McDonald does say, for the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker is good to go against the Lions. And that's one of the big questions this week, in my opinion, is can you start Ken Walker? Was like a 70% snap, 67% of the touches in that first game, 23 opportunities, the absolute definition of a bell cow back. And really, before he got hurt in that game, it was like 85%. It was truly incredible, and he looked phenomenal. He was one of our guys that we said, we don't love the running backs in that round 4 range, but man, I love Ken Walker, so that is the guy I'd be going after in every draft, and I have him in 3 out of my 6 leagues. I'm excited that he's back, but I'm going to have him on the bench personally myself. It depends on who your other options are, so of course let me know. But one, Zach Charbonnet, he's impressed. He's looked better than I expected. Isn't amazing, but he has been getting what's blocked. He looks powerful. He's got some nice little juice on after the catch here. I'm not convinced he's just going to go away. Now, he's been used as a bell cow too. Maybe it is part of this offense, the Ryan Grubb offense. We just have one feature back, and we're going to ride him, whoever that ends up being. That could be the case, and I'd love to see that, and that would be phenomenal for Ken Walker moving forward. But he has cited using multiple backs in the past as well. So I'd like to wait and see what the division is, in particular because of the matchup. Now, if it was a softer matchup and, let's call it the Raiders, right? The second most points to run next. Okay, well, in that case, even if they split up the workload, it might be an okay fantasy day for me. Probably will be a good fantasy day. But against the Lions, who have been, for now, back-to-back years, the best team against the run, and it's not really even close. Like, they're giving up fewer than 8 fantasy points right now to running backs. And this might be a split backfield now, too. I'd love to wait and see how this goes. It's the definition of a pass funnel defense where they stop the run so well. They are not good against the pass. They've improved a little bit, the Lions, but let's be real. They are significantly more vulnerable through the air than on the ground. So I don't want to mess with this one. And if I can, I'm going to bench him. I'm benching him in a couple leagues. So, for example, I'm benching Ken Walker for Dobbins in one league. And that's might seem easy. Oh, well, okay. But Dobbins is on the fringe here with a banged-up quarterback and a tough Chiefs matchup himself, too. So let me know what your question might be. If you have Ken Walker, can you trust him? There are going to be situations I say, yes, he's right on the fringe in my top 30 running backs, but there's definitely going to be some situations I say, nope, let's not go for Ken Walker this week. So let me know where your situation is, and I will give you my best take that I possibly can. And last couple running back notes here. Raheem No Start. I see a lot of people calling him these days. He ultimately was limited in practice. They said he's going to try to play against the Titans. My read on this, though, is it's Monday night. Why wait it out? Are you going to really put in like Jeff Wilson in this worse attack here? We can't treat this like the Dolphins of old anymore until we see how Huntley does, until ideally Tua's back at some point if the dude is healthy again. I'd rather see him retire if he needs to. But if he comes back and is good to go, then great. Maybe we can expect the same efficiency from this crazy Dolphins run game from last year. But until then, do I really want the number 2 at best back in this offense? Yeah, he came off 21 touchdowns total last year. But ultimately, that's not this ripe environment anymore. It's not this fertile scheme. So I don't think it matters. I don't think you should be waiting it out for Mostert at this point. Maybe I've seen a lot of people drop him, so maybe you stash him and see what happens. Because if H.A. does go down, Mostert does shoot right back up the ranks. But for now, I'm not trusting this guy. But he's likely to give it a go either way. Does look like we got yet another super chat. Thank you guys so much for your generosity. Robert coming on in with Josh Jacobs or Ramondre Stevenson this week. 2 tough matchups for both these guys. Which one is the right one? Well, Ramondre's matchup doesn't seem all that scary, given that Kyren Williams just put up 30 against this 49ers team, right? And they're banged up in the front 7. My risk here, though, is, we just saw Ramondre put up 0.5 fantasy points. I don't know. I don't think that Josh Jacobs has that type of floor here. He's gotten tons of work each and every week. The featured back here. I know Emmanuel Wilson's starting to mix in a little more as a change of pace guy. I know the Vikings are a pretty scary defense overall, but I trust LaFleur. I trust this offense, and I trust the volume there with Jacobs a lot more than I trust this Pats team. So I'm going to go Josh Jacobs over Ramondre Stevenson. The first 2 weeks were amazing for Stevenson, but I do worry that the Patriots we saw last week are more likely to be the Patriots we see the rest of the season until we get Drake May. And even then, I'm a little bit worried. So yeah, I'm going to go Josh Jacobs on this one. Flyer on the TE Higgins from Arizona this week. I've seen this one come up quite a bit. I did an AMA for Reddit and his name popped up. I dove a little bit more in it. It's an intriguing player, intriguing athlete. But to me, I just think there's more secure options on the waiver wire. I'm seeing Pat Fry dropped in a lot of leagues. Again, for decent reason. The guy hasn't done anything so far fantasy-wise yet this season. But the guy I'm going to as a tight end streamer, the sleeper that I'm really into, is Tyler Conklin. I just love what I saw from Aaron Rodgers. It was a vintage performance. And when he was mobile and escaping the pocket, to me, the guy that it was his go-to became Tyler Conklin in those broken situations. And this defense, the Broncos, very good perimeter, very great corners. Like I'm worried for Garrett Wilson today. Let me know if you guys have questions on him for sure. But ultimately, Tyler Conklin, the middle of the scenes, down those areas, that's where this team is more vulnerable, the Broncos. So I like Tyler Conklin today. I think he's a decent play for sure. The big risk there is do they get up huge through the backfield and then not need to throw it at all? That's certainly a possibility. But I'd rather play like Tyler Conklin than Higgins. I'd rather play Zach Ertz, an absolute target mammoth yet again with Cliff Kingsbury. He's done actually okay so far in fantasy, Zach Ertz. The tight end 8 and tight end 12 his past 2 weeks, and they haven't been huge games, 8 and 6 points, but you're getting something out of the guy. Noah Fant coming off a 6-catch, 60-yard day. That's not nothing at this point. So I think you could look to him on Monday Night Football if he's out there. There's just guys I prefer to Higgins. I think more so the work in Arizona funnels now to Michael Wilson. Maybe Greg Dortch gets a little uptick. And I think James Conner gets himself a nice little boost here. It's a real crazy flyer, and I think you're just like at every tight end at this point, hoping for a touchdown or bust. I would be treading lightly here. The other one I will toss out there is Dalton Schultz. I saw him get dropped in a ton of leagues. Certainly Cole Kmet, he was one of the biggest pickups of the week. That's the guy I ended up landing on a bunch of my rosters, and I'm really excited about it. So I would look, if he's somehow still lingering out there, Dalton Schultz. But I imagine those guys aren't there. But Dalton Schultz with some banged-up situations there for the Texans could be an intriguing play. But if not, I would much rather go to Tyler Conklin, Zach Ertz, Pat Freiermuth, Noah Fant. I mean, Mike Gesicki. It's one of those guys has to be out there, and I think that's a bit of a safer bet, Robert. But let me know if none of those guys are there, because I think you can give it a dart throw, but I can't treat it like anything better than the dart throw that Elijah Higgins is. Good, sir. All righty, guys, back to the running back news. Thank you then so much for your super chats here. Very generous of you, Robert and Anthony. So greatly appreciated, guys. The other news, only a couple quick other notes here. The Bucs backfield, Bucky Irving, questionable with a hammy. You never love to see a midweek hammy pop up here for a running back. He's questionable. He says, I'm going to play, so it must be a light thing. Still, he was a guy I was ready to just toss right in the lineup and hope for the best. I have a little caution now. I'm playing Braylon Allen, for example, ahead of Bucky Irving this week. I think Braylon Allen's going to get a lot of mop-up work in that Denver game. And ultimately, Bucky Irving, I'm just worried about the re-aggravation. Maybe he doesn't play. That could change, though, if Rachaad White, who's now questionable with an illness, does not play. Because ultimately, if it's just Bucky Irving in the backfield, how could I not at least give this a try, even if the hamstring's at risk to flare up? You got to go and get a featured workload because Bucky Irving looks so dang good while he is out there. But ultimately, for right now, assuming both backs are in, I feel like Bucky Irving, you got to wait and see, does that hammy look healthy? What is the situation there? So I am a little bit skeptical there for Bucky Irving. Another super chat coming on in. Thank you guys so much. So generous of you today. Rudy coming in. Rudy Barger, flex. Got Leggett, Braylon, Bucky, Rashawn, and Ridley. Well, we just talked about two of those guys. And I think those are honestly the top two guys. Ridley's certainly in that conversation. I'm worried about the guy, but he also has such a significant ceiling. The way they've been moving him around now, does Hopkins coming back and looking good last week really change things? Does that end up dictating some coverage now goes to Hopkins in defensive game plans, which ends up freeing up Ridley? It's tricky to know. It's tricky to say. I do lean here. It comes down to me, Braylon versus Ridley. And Ridley certainly the lower of the floors here. 1 point last week. Like, that was a devastating game. But the week before, 23, 2 touchdowns total, 1 on the ground, like the way they were moving him around, scheming up touches. I'm not ready to completely throw in the towel yet on Calvin Ridley. I still think he's a very explosive player, still solid. So I'm going to go with Ridley of these options, with the caveat being I think Braylon Allen's a little bit more guaranteed to get you like 7 to 8 points no matter what happens in that game, with the upside to score a touchdown too. I'm intrigued to see what Roschon does. I don't want to start him yet. I think that line is atrocious. It's not a guarantee he takes over despite a beat writer speculation. I think he can and will. He should. I think DeAndre Swift is droppable. But I think it'll get to wait and see type of situation with these kind of the rookies, the sophomores that are stepping into bigger roles likely, but we haven't seen anything from him. I would limit this one down to Braylon. Again, unless Rachaad White is out, then it's an easy, you're playing Bucky Irving. If Rachaad White's illness lingers in, he's ruled out. Doesn't seem expected, but you would go Bucky Irving. You wouldn't think twice. Now, if that's not the case, I think it comes down to Braylon or Ridley. I think Braylon's more guaranteed to get you 7 to 8. If that's what you need, you're the heavy favorite. You had Malik Neighbors going off, and your opponent had a face plant on Thursday night. Well, okay, I'll take the 8 guaranteed points of Braylon Allen because he does have a ceiling too. And I shouldn't say guaranteed points. It's not like he's guaranteed. Braylon Allen's the backup running back, but I think that game does get out of hand, and he does get some good mop-up work. All that to say, though, in 9 out of 10 situations, I'm going to go Ridley. I'm going to go for the bigger shot here. Miami has some decent corners there in Ramsey, but it's not the Ramsey of old that you have to bench no matter what. And I think the Titans are really going to try to come out slinging this game. Thank you, Rudy, so much for the super chat, too. And Harry, thank you very much for your super chat as well, Harry Taylor. Full PPR, need 3. Taylor, B-Rob, Harris, Connor, and Hubbard. This is a great backfield. You got a bounty of bridges here, good sir, compared to a lot of us deciding between like Braylon Allen and Bucky Irving. I gotta get a little coffee while I prepare for this one. So I would say, weirdly, my favorite of all these is Brian Robinson. No Austin Eckler. We've seen this in the past with Cliff Kingsbury. He condenses the touches and absolutely feeds one workhorse. And this line has been actually surprisingly good in run blocking. And I just love Brian Robinson. Very efficient with his touches. In fact, he was 4th in yards per route run as a receiver. He gets very underrated and overlooked. That this guy can get it done as a pass catcher. So I love Brian Robinson. I really like James Conner today as well. I think back and forth, that matchup, that's a game where two running backs could be viable against each other. To me, then it comes down to, it's just Jonathan Taylor, right? And I don't bench the guy at this point. I know the Steelers matchup is a little bit scarier than, Harris against the Colts, who have given up the most rush yards per game on the ground. And now you got no Jaylen Warren, but I really would not be surprised at all if Cordarrelle Patterson is more annoying than what people expect here. In fact, I'm banking on Cordarrelle Patterson being more annoying than people expect. I'm a little lower on Najee than the typical crowd here. And it's not just that. It's also, they could pound the rock with him. He could get to 70, 80 yards, and then Justin Fields could vulture both touchdowns, So to me, Harris is the least likely one of these guys for me. I do love what Hubbard did last week, 25 points with Andy Dalton, re-injecting the offense while they were in not even a close game, never a close game, but the first 3 quarters while they were playing their starters. Ultimately, Hubbard had like 17 of 20 touches. He had 5 of 6 targets to the running backs. He was the feature back. And I do feel good about him against a Cincy team, get up the 4th most rush yards to backs, like 5th most points to running backs. He's in a great spot too. But you just have great options. And that's what it really comes down to. Like, you have 5 great options. The 3 that I would play are Brian Robinson, James Conner, and Jonathan Taylor. Again, if you're worried about the matchup, though, like pivot to Hubbard for Taylor. But I couldn't bench. I benched Taylor once in his career, and it was that one game. It was a bad matchup against Buffalo, and he ended up having like 50 points. And I will never, ever recommend or bench Taylor again myself as a result. So thank you, Harry, so much for the super chat. I hope that helps you make your decision. Well done, though, with that backfield. That is a very, very impressive backfield you got there. Alrighty, guys, thank you again for those generous super chats. We have just a handful more notes to cover here. We got Dameon Pierce out for the Texans, but the bigger note there for the Texans backfield is Joe Mixon is questionable against the Jags, and that's one we will definitely have to be monitoring ahead of the 1 p.m. kickoff, because Cam Akers goes from a very viable running back to, if Mixon is out, it's a great matchup against the Jags, to not even playable if Mixon's in. More importantly, Mixon himself, if he's in, you got to think the team feels good about his status, and they're not going to roll out. This is going to be a similar argument that I had to Deebo in a second. A lot of people are going to be wondering, do I play Deebo Samuel this week? We're going to cover that in just a second here. This is the similar type of argument, though. Like, do you need Joe Mixon to beat the pathetic Jaguars? Probably not. So if he's out there, it means he's really good to go, and you're not worried about re-aggravating. You're not worried about his health. And so I think Joe Mixon, if he's in, you got to play him. If he's out, you can definitely play Cam Akers as well. That game is thankfully at 1 o'clock too, so we will have a clearer picture. And the last note, we just kind of covered this, is the Steelers' backfield. Warren is going to be out, and that ultimately does seem to set up Najee Harris, who's looking like a chalk running back here on DraftKings, for a massive, massive workload. I'm still a little bit skeptical. I think Cordarrelle Patterson, we know Arthur Smith just licks his lips, gets all horny at the thought of giving Cordarrelle Patterson more touches. And so I ultimately, I certainly like Najee. You're getting probably 15 to 18 touches, maybe even 20 plus against the most generous run D in the entire league. There's nothing to not like there. But everybody crowning this guy as like a guaranteed running back one, a must play on DraftKings at 5,600. There's so many good running back plays at DraftKings that, he's a good play too. No doubt about it. To me, the ceiling is a little bit lower. So when I'm looking at those like tournament type formats, I don't know. I don't think he's a must play. I don't know that he's a must play either in regular fantasy as well. Don't be shocked if Cordarrelle is more involved, if Justin Fields gets a couple touchdowns. Just a situation to be aware of. We are now going to move on over to the wide receiver position, guys. We now have 640 of you, and we're not even close to a quarter done with the stream. Love to see it, 650. Please do consider, again, whether you're live on YouTube, Twitter, X, Anywhere you're at, the like button is so greatly appreciated. Any likes, the shares, the retweets, it really does help grow the channel. We're already approaching 4,100. This week, we've almost had 100 subscribers alone. We had nearly 80 so far this week. It's incredible to see the growth. It's so validating, so appreciated. It makes you feel proud of what we're doing here. So thank you again so much. We'd love to have you here. And do consider hitting that subscribe button if you like what you're hearing. I know I've been talking a while with just news. I do want to get to all your questions, but you guys have been so generous with the super chats. It's good. I love it. I'm not complaining at all. It's so awesome. But it takes me a little longer. Usually I'm through with the news at like the 25-minute mark. So sorry, I apologize in advance. I know a lot of you are waiting for your questions. I appreciate your patience. We'll be running through this receiver news. It is important, though, so we got to cover the fact that Davante Adams is not playing. Now, is he really hurt? You know, Adam Schefter did tweet out last night. He pulled up lame at the end of practice, and this is going to be a week-to-week situation. Is that a hamstring injury, or is that a I don't want to play for the Raiders type of injury at this point? Is this a business decision? I'm sure you guys saw that from Antonio Pierce, where he said people quit on our team, and we're going to make some business decisions. And now suddenly Max Crosby, Davante Adams, the presumed leaders of this team, are now being out for this game. I don't know. I don't know if it's a punishment. I don't know if it's an injury. I don't know if it's a I don't want to play for you anymore. Wouldn't be shocked at all to see the trade rumor mill starting to circulate here for Davante Adams. If I had to put any money on who's the first player traded, the big trade of the NFL this season, it'd be on Davante Adams. Maybe he goes to the Jets and then destroys Garrett Wilson's value. Who knows? But ultimately, what does this do for fantasy? Well, Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers have to get big bumps. Bowers becomes the tight end one de facto of the week because Michael Mayer is also out. He's going to see anyways 90% plus of the routes, and now probably the number one target here. He's already got a 9-catch, 98-yard day on his resume. He has proven he can be the anchor of this passing game, and I think that's what's going to happen. So Brock Bowers, an absolute must start, a smash play. Great at DraftKings at 5,600. The only reason to not go to him is maybe you go to Dallas Goedert at 5,100, who we're going to talk about in just a second. But ultimately, really, really love Bowers. Myers, I think, is going to vacuum some targets. He is capable of seeing a huge workload and just being the main chain mover for this offense too. So I think he gets a big rise. The other guy, only 4% rostered as of this morning, is Trey Tucker, coming off a 7-catch, 90-yard touchdown day, 3,600 on DraftKings. Phenomenal punt play over there. And ultimately, just a guy that I would stash in a lot of leagues if I needed receiver help. I would rather play Michael Wilson today, but hey, again, Trey Tucker could end up being, he's my number 2 wide receiver stream of the day should you need a desperation plug-in. So big fan either way of those wide receiver pickups. What this does, I mean, that's a huge volume. Nearly 30% of the targets are now opened up here. So it's something you need to consider, no doubt about it. Now moving forward with the other news, the guy we just kind of alluded to, Dallas Goedert, because A.J. Brown, we do have a super chat. Thank you, Campanelli, making sure I get that. So thank you guys for your patience. Let me go get to that super chat. Son, AAA, would you play Garrett Wilson, Olave, or Akers half PPR? So Son, AAA. This is one, well, it's tricky because it is early in the day, so we don't have all the news that we need. This allows me to cover the Olave news real quick, as he did suffer a hamstring injury midweek. They are optimistic he's going to go, but it's not a guarantee. He's a true game time decision. So we might be able to just cross him off anyways because he might be ruled out. And even if he doesn't, I have a hard time starting these hammy midweek guys, especially if you think a receiver, like you go from 0 to accelerating as fast as you can. That requires your hamstrings, folks. And there's a huge risk at any point Olave flares up and you play him because he's in and suddenly he's out and you get 1 point and maybe not any. That sucks. And so I think, ultimately I can't go to Olave. Akers, if Mixon is out, is actually my preferred play here over Garrett Wilson. I know that might sound crazy, but Pat Surtain is the real deal. No receiver has had more than 6 fantasy points against him yet this season when drawing his coverage. And Akers gets the Jags. It's just abysmal defense, abysmal run defense, a great matchup in general. So if Akers is the featured back, we know Pierce is out, and if Mixon's ruled out too, you're looking again. Last week it wasn't the smash play that I never really expected to be a smash play because the Vikings were a much better team, much better defense, and the game flow. I mentioned Akers is a game flow risk here. Like he could end up not getting the work that you expect because they get down early. And that's exactly what happened. The defensive turnovers, the touchdowns, and ultimately they got in a huge hole. If Akers did bail us out, I thought he looked good. The efficiency don't show, the yards per carry well, it doesn't look amazing, but I thought when you eyeball test-wise, he was cutting to the other side of the field well. That reception, he showed some power, breaking a couple tackles to get in the end zone. Like I liked what I saw out of Akers. So if he's going to be getting 20 touches, I think this game script, it's very unlikely that it gets away from the Texans against the Jags. We saw how pathetic the Jags team is. The defense is abysmal. The team as a whole is abysmal. I think this is the type of game where the Texans get up big and you get like 20, 25 touches from Akers. So I really like Akers today if he is the featured back. If not, last man standing is Garrett Wilson here. You're talking about an alpha wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. So even though Surtain does scare me, it's not like you can't go to Garrett Wilson. Like you're desperate and you have to bench him. No, it is a tougher matchup, but ultimately I don't think it's a situation you must avoid by any means. And then we got Jonathan Santiago coming in. Thank you guys so much, son. And now Jonathan with your super chats. Start 2, full PPR. 1 point. First downs, JSN, Myers, Watson, or Dobbins. Also, sit 1 full PPR. Ayuk, Zach Moss, or Rome Odunze. All right. Let's us get into this one. I think for full PPR, 1 point first downs, that's an interesting option here. I really like Myers in that setup. I think he is that kind of move the chain, let's pepper you with targets type of guy. And so you're getting first downs, you're getting full PPR points. Dobbins does intrigue me in that format as well. But there are worlds where they put in Gus Edwards for the short yardage and get you in there. So yeah, I would lean to Myers here. I think he's going to rack up 8 to 9 catches. I would bank on 4 or 5 of those being for first downs, and so you're already at 10 points probably at minimum on just first downs and receptions. That's playing to your format, baby. So I like that because whatever else he has on top of that is pure gravy. So I'm going to go with Myers there. I don't trust JSN right now. Watson, big play guy, sure, but in this type of format, I'd rather get those sure, nice floor points. And then sit 1 of full PPR, Ayuk, Moss, or Rome. That's a tricky one. Dare I say? So this allows us to kind of cover the Deebo Samuel news too. So Samuel is expected to play against the Pats today. So that changes things for Ayuk, who wasn't even able to get it done without Deebo on the field. Jennings was the one that stepped up big time there. So what happens with Ayuk now? I mean, he's malcontent. You see him at practice. He got his money, and yet he's still throwing temper tantrums over his shorts. And we've seen him get put in the doghouse. I'm a little worried about Ayuk. And comparatively, we got Zach Moss coming off yet another 16 to 20 touch day, another 16 to 20 fantasy point day. Even though it's ugly, it's not efficient. He's getting you your fantasy points. And Rome just blew up. That's the trickiest one right there for me. Is like, can you bench Rome Odunze after that monster game he just had? To me, he kind of emerged as this clear alpha. And I know Keenan Allen's back today. So what's the targets look like in this situation now? It's tricky. But I just look at Rome, and I'm like, the Rams give by far the most points to wide receiver ones. Is he now the wide receiver 1? He had 11 targets last week, 6 catches, 112, and a touchdown. I have a hard time putting that genie back in the bottle here in such a good matchup against the Rams. So with the Deebo news, like, even with like my rankings, I probably have Ayuk higher than Rome. But sitting here right now, Jonathan, I'm like, I would rather sit Ayuk. And it's going to suck because you probably played him every single week so far. And then it's like, okay, the 1 week I bench him is the week he finally is like Ayuk coming out party. The Pats have definitely been much better against the run than they have been the pass. But like, Christian Gonzalez is good. He's shut down a lot of people so far this year. Yeah, I'm going to go Rome and Moss. I play him and I sit Ayuk, which is crazy. But that's where I lean, Jonathan. Let me know what you end up deciding. Great question for sure. So we covered some of that crucial wide receiver news there. Again, Olave being a game time decision, hamstring midweek injury, somebody I'd prefer to avoid if I can, given the injury flare-up nature of that. So I would like to not play him. Meanwhile, Deebo Samuel with the calf is planning to play. And the way I look at this is you're facing the Patriots. You're heavy favorites at home. I know they're desperate for a win. Don't get me wrong, but you don't need Deebo to win this game. They should be able to smash us no matter who they have in the lineup, us being the Patriots. I'm a Pats fan. It sucks right now. So that leads me to thinking that if Deebo's in, it's Deebo. You don't need a decoy to beat the Patriots today, and you don't need to risk Deebo's health. today to make sure you beat the Patriots. So to me, I'm playing Deebo Samuel if he's in. Now it's a 4:00 game, so you ultimately have to have a backup plan. Ideally, it's Jauan Jennings. That'd be a natural 1-for-1 slide in. If not, Michael Wilson, again, my favorite wide receiver play. He doesn't play until the later part of the slate today, so you could go after him. Trey Tucker doesn't play till the later slate as well. That's why I'm actually okay waiting it out for Deebo Samuel today, is because there's plenty of plug-and-play options should he end up getting ruled out unexpectedly late. But if you have Deebo, I'm rolling him out. I don't think he would be playing if he wasn't really close to full strength right now, because you don't need him to beat the Patriots. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he takes a hard hit and he's out. But it's different than the hamstring situation, in my opinion. So I'm going to go, especially because it's not midweek. The midweek stuff, it's fresh. It could flare up at any minute. That worries me a lot more. So I'm ready to fire up Deebo Samuel today is where I'm going to go. And we have a big super chat. Kristen, thank you so much. So generous of you. $10 super chat here. You're so greatly appreciated. Thank you so much, Kristen. Asking, Hurts or Daniels for her quarterback? I'm going Jayden Daniels today. Love that game, the Arizona matchup. Hurts without his top two weapons at this point. Yeah, give me Jayden Daniels. No doubt about it. That's a game I'd much rather target. Andrews or Conklin? Call me crazy. I'm going Conklin. I'm done with Andrews. 4 routes last week. 4. Now you look at the game script today. Yeah, Buffalo should be a shootout. But why does that not favor Isaiah Likely, the more athletic guy at this point, the more dangerous after the catch threat at this point? Just what situation favors Andrews? If it's not the blocking situations like last week, is it really the route running one? Maybe this is the bounce back game that we've all been waiting for him. I'm not buying it. I'm out on Andrews. 0 points last week. And again, 4 routes, 33% of the snaps. Like, what are we doing here? So ultimately, I would bench Andrews for Conklin, which might sound crazy, but yeah, that's how I'm playing it. Again, I mentioned how Conklin is a great perimeter secondary here, a little more vulnerable for the Broncos over the middle. And then flex Pollard, Dobbs, Worthy, or Pirine. I think Pirine's cuttable. I'll say it at this point. I got that one wrong. I thought it was going to be the Pirine show over Steele because he's the better pass catching skill set. But now you have Kareem Hunt mixing in here. Steele was 17 carries last week. It was definitely the favorite of their team. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go over Pirine. I think you can cut him. I think you can do better for your bench here, Christian. Man, I cut him where I have him. For example, of these 3, Pollard, Dobbs, or Worthy, I think I'm leaning Pollard here. I do like Dobbs a lot more with Love back in the lineup. I think he's far more usable than he would have been. But again, it's the sketchiness of like Malik Willis is going to mix in too. And who is he? What's the workload truly looking like? Pollard, you're going to get your 17-ish touches. He's looked really good in 2 out of 3 games so far. I don't think Miami's the scariest of matchup. I think that ball it's just going to be an ugly defensive game where like they're not going to have trouble getting the ball back into the offense's hands there for the Titans. So I'm leaning Pollard of those options. Worthy, of course, is like the blow up here. He's the one that has the highest ceiling by a mile, but we've only seen it 1 out of 3 games. The usage hasn't been there. I'm going to lean with Pollard. I think that's a little bit safer. And thank you so much again. So generous of you, Kristen, man. And as she reminds everybody, 850 of you here already. Please do consider liking and subscribe, and Wolfpack could join us and keep growing what we're building over here. We love to have you. Derek just also with a super chat. You guys have been so generous today. Thank you so much. Trey Tucker or Michael Wilson, full PPR. The 2 favorite streamers for me this week at wide receiver if you're desperate for a plug-in. And I'm going to go with Michael Wilson as my favorite of the bunch here. Trey McBride is out. That opens up a ton of volume here. Number 2 spot in this offense behind Marv Harrison. Now, maybe Marv Harrison just goes absolutely bananas and he puts up all the points in the world. That could happen. And wide receiver ones destroy the Commanders, but every wide receiver destroys the Commanders too. So I like Michael Wilson coming off a 9-target, 8-catch, 64-yard day, which he had a 30-yarder called back by penalty as well. Like that could have been a near 100-yard day. I don't think anybody would even ask questions about him. They just put him right in the lineup. So he definitely showed a bit of juice last week, showed a little bit more chain moving ability as well, not just a deep play threat. So I go to him. I do like Trey Tucker. I think the role is getting elevated here with no Devontae Adams, and he's coming off a huge day of himself. So there's a lot to like about Trey Tucker. Definitely a worthy consideration. But if I have the choice between these 2, definitely Michael Wilson. And thank you, Kevin, so much for your super chat as well. Pick 2 at PPR. Quentin Johnson, Rojo, Get Myers excellent tournament. Hugs and kisses right back at you, Kevin. Thank you so much for your support here. So for me, I'm gonna go. I love Christian Kirk today. The stat I heard about him from Fantasy Points was, and their data is so incredible that you can kind of get these types of stats here. That the Jags matchup here against the Texans run quarters coverage, cover four, higher than anybody in the league. And over the last 2 seasons, Christian Kirk has the most yards per route run and most fantasy points per route run against quarter coverage, other than Jaylen Waddle, like number 2 on the list. It's a coverage he destroys. He's coming off a 30% first read target share last week with no Evan Ingram. Seems like he's kind of reestablished himself. Like, I can still be your guys. Don't forget about me, please. So I like Christian Kirk. And then it comes down to Rojo or Myers for me. And I think Myers is the preferred play, assuming that Bucky Irving's in. If Bucky Irving's in, it's like Rojo's starting to see the carries anyways, and now we're looking at an ugly backfield for a guy that's averaged almost less, right at the 2 yards per carry mark. He just looks bad. So Rojo, unless Irving's ruled out, because if Irving's ruled out and you get Rojo of last year, it's one of those things where it's like you plug your nose, you're not going to enjoy the efficiency. He's going to get you 25 touches, and he's probably going to get there for you in fantasy. Last year, that was the case more often than not. So if Irving is ruled out, I go Rojo and I go Kirk. I mean, but I'm also like, Myers deserves to be in this lineup, given the no Devontae Adams news. It's a matter of does Myers end up struggling with number 1 coverage, but they move him around well. They shake him free. I think it's Kirk or Myers unless Irving's ruled out, and then I would go Rojo and Kirk. That's how I would play this one, Kevin. Thank you again so much for the super chat. And Papa Sarno coming in yet again with another super chat. Thank you so much for your generosity week in and week out. I greatly appreciate it. Sup Wolf, happy PPR, need one. Dobbins, Deontay, or Moss. And I'm crazy about sitting Hill for Pickens with Snoop at QB. Smash that like button. Thank you, Sarno. Let's dive on in to what we got here. I would go Deontay of these 3 options, coming off, it was a crazy performance in terms of the workload and production that this guy had with Andy Dalton at the helm. He's up to my wide receiver 16 on the week, and honestly, I'm 4 spots below ECR. I should probably even higher than 14 targets, 8 catches, 122 yards, and the score 22.5 PPR points, and a humongous day. But the big thing was like nearly half of those routes were first read targets. Nearly 50% of those targets were just designed like first read looks, get it to Deontay Johnson. They said they were going to feed him. They finally got somebody that can keep him fed in Andy Dalton. So I love Deontay Johnson. Not a scary matchup. You got the revenge game narrative for Deontay and not Deontay, for Andy Dalton too. He's going to want to put it on the Bengals here. So yeah, I love Deontay Johnson today. An absolute must play. I'd play him over either of those running backs. And then, oh man, this gets tricky. Like, do you sit? It's nice to have Snoop at QB. That's certainly better. But do you play George Pickens over him? And I actually do play Pickens ahead of Tyreek today. I'm on an island on that one. Tyreek did get bumped up by a lot of people in the rankings, and he got a little bump in mine too, but not to the degree. I look at Pickens and I see a guy, the production hasn't been crazy yet this year. No. But you look at the underlying metrics, the peripherals, he is averaging right now the 3rd most average separation according to fantasy points data. Like, he's getting open at will. And this was against AJ Terrell. This was against Pat Surtain. And the Chargers really bracket him as the type of coverage that always limits him. But the Indy, they run cover 1. And that, according to fantasy points data, George Pickens sees a 160% boost against that type of coverage. And I know it's Arthur Smith. And that offense, I never want to trust an Arthur Smith wide receiver 1. But you look at that Indy secondary. We know there's going to be a handful of blowups for Pickens this year. And to me, it's this week. I have him. I love him at DraftKings at low ownership at 5,700. I'm definitely tossing him into a ton of lineups. I think the Colts are good enough on offense that you can't just completely pound them into submission. You can beat them again on the ground. I think the Steelers are going to run the ball 40-ish times, which does make me a little nervous about Pickens here. But that secondary is so bad. So I think Pickens does get deep. I think he gets deep at least once, maybe even twice. It's crazy to bench Hill. I get that. But I'm going to go Pickens myself. It sounds like you were already leaning that way, and that's where I would go, Sarno. It's risky. It's so risky because it's not like you need Tyler Huntley to unleash this thing deep for Tyreek Hill to get his ceiling, he can get there with just a quick dink and dunk, and then he rips the ball up and down the field. But ultimately, I do like going George Pickens over him myself. I have him higher in my rankings, so we shall see how it goes. And Chris, again, you guys are so generous with your super chats. Thank you guys so much today. I just so greatly appreciate it. We've already had 12 super chats. You guys are the best. In a pickle with injuries and potential risk/snap count. Full PPR, assuming all play, start 2. Mixon, Hubbard, Olave, and Keenan. To me, I'm not even going to consider Keenan a part of this question. I don't like Keenan Allen at all this year. And, all the risk around all these guys, including him, something could get aggravated there. He's the one with the lowest ceiling outcome, in my opinion. We all, this one might get answered for you, right, Chris? Because you might get Mixon ruled out, and then you only have Hubbard and Olave. To me, though, the number one guy here is Hubbard. 25 points with Andy Dalton at QB in half PPR leagues. Full PPR, he had 30 points last week for you, right? You can't bench that. The guy was the clear-cut 80% touch guy, like the definite dominant workhorse. So ultimately, I'm a big fan there of Hubbard this week. A must play. Then other than that, it comes down to like who's in, who's out. Assuming they're all in, I would go to Mixon. I think this is a easy win for the Texans. The game script will be right for them to just pound the rock, bleed the clock out. So I'm going to go Hubbard and Mixon, assuming all are active. Although, again, the question might get answered for you because Olave and Mixon might get ruled out, and then you got no choice but to go with Keenan Allen, who is going to play today. But he's the distant fourth to me of these guys, assuming all are in. And I would rank them Hubbard, then Mixon, then Olave, and then Keenan is how I would rank these 4, assuming all are in. Thank you again, Chris, so much for the super chat and for Papa Sarno and for everybody super chatting today. You guys are so generous. It's so greatly appreciated. Let's wrap up the news, and then it's an hour plus of all of your questions. Thank you guys again. Nico Collins said he is good to go. He popped up with a hamstring injury. The difference for me is that he's practicing full. He's not a game-time decision. He said he's absolutely ready to go. And then you look at the matchup. No team is playing man at a higher rate than the Jags right now. And Nico Collins murders man coverage. He's second in the league in terms of yards per route run and fantasy points per route run against man across the last 2 seasons. And we've seen it. Tyreek Hill getting single coverage against the Jags goes bananas. Like every opponent that they had, Khalil Shakir last week going just absolutely nuclear against them. So I think Nico Collins, yes, you smash play him. He's the no-brainer, top 5 wide receiver this week. No ifs, ands, or about it. I'm not worried about his injury. You got Nick Underhill reporting Chris Olave suffered a hammy in Friday's practice. They do say it's a true game-time decision. There's some optimism, but they're going to monitor it ahead of kickoff. That's a scary situation. That one worries me more than a one where, like, again, Nico Collins cleared from the injury report. He's ready to go. Olave, meanwhile, that re-aggravation risk seems a whole lot higher. So I do think that one is ultimately a little sketchier. I would avoid the Olave situation if I could. Let me know what options you guys have. I don't know that I really bumped him down in my rankings nearly enough to, as I answer questions thinking about Olave right now. I really don't want to play him if I don't have to. One, you got the AJ Terrell factor, which is scary. You don't want to overrate number 1 corner matchups, but he's good, and he might shadow Olave. And then, again, the risk. Like, if he does play one bad tweak and you have a 0-point day, I'm going to bump him. I had him at wide receiver 19. I'm going to put him below even Rashid Shaheed at this point. I'm going to kind of call, like, Jauan Jennings the line here for me. But if you, again, wanted to go to, like, Michael Wilson or Darnell Mooney or Trey Tucker because you just want, like, I don't want to deal with the risk, I get it. So, yeah, he's down to wide receiver 33 for me. Chris Olave, a live quick edit there. In the last couple of receiver notes, Deontay Johnson is expected to play. So, ultimately, he practiced on Friday, downplayed his absence from Thursday. You're playing the guy. 14 targets, 50% first read targets, 5 out of 6 end zone targets on the day went to Deontay Johnson. The guy's a beast. He had a huge day and could have been even bigger. So, yeah, you're playing him. Tank Dell is out. Line me up for, again, Nico Collins, and Stephon Diggs gets an even bigger bump. He had led the team in targets last week and even better here. And I wonder if his route tree expands a little bit. He's playing a lot of the low A-dot move the chain stuff. We know Stephon Diggs can stretch the field, though, too. So I think his role gets a little bit elevated. He plays all layers of the field here now. Then we got Jordan Addison off the injury report against the Packers. So he's going to play. And honestly, I like him. He's right around the fringe of my top 40 receivers. I'd play him. I think I'd play Michael Wilson ahead of him just because, again, let's see the guy get through a game here. But I do like it. I can certainly see getting there. And then Keenan Allen is going to play, expected to be active with that heel injury. But again, the foot injuries always scare me. I just don't think he's – with all these other ones, it's like, yeah, maybe the juice is worth the squeeze if you take the risk on. I don't think that's the case for him. All righty, Wolfpack. We just have a couple quick tight end notes, and then the rest of the time is, of course, dedicated to all your questions. 945 of you here, though, and we haven't even crossed into the first hour yet. That's so awesome. So greatly appreciated. One last call for, not probably our last call, but a thumbs up button if you like what you're hearing, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, likes, the shares, the retweets. We are so greatly appreciative of you being here. And if you're new here, please do consider subscribing. We'd love to have you come back. Maybe we can get over that 4,100 hump here in week 4. It'd be so awesome to continue to add 100 or so a week, maybe at 5K. Who knows? Awesome goals to have. And it's realistic because you guys are here with us. So please do consider hitting that thumbs up, the likes, whatever it is where you're at. It does help us go a long way, sharing it out and helping the boys grow here. All righty, in terms of tight end news, the biggest is that Trey McBride is not playing. Obviously opens up a ton of looks against the most vulnerable secondary in the league. You're playing certainly Marvin Harrison Jr. as a definite target hog, but then the other guys, like I mentioned, I think Michael Wilson becomes a definite start. Greg Dortch is an okay play. I'd much rather have Michael Wilson myself. But yeah, you can get him in there. Elijah Higgins, even if you're desperate, I'm going to see. I know we got an Elijah Higgins super chat earlier, and I didn't give it real credence. But again, we're talking about a big body that can move. Bare minimum on DraftKings, at least you got to give it some thought. But like in redraft leagues, okay, with the tight end position as bad as it is, and now you got a matchup coming against this abysmal secondary. Now, where does Higgins rank? So I'm gonna quickly toss Higgins into my rankings here, and let's see where he ends up being, because it isn't, again, the best possible matchup. It's the worst secondary in football, and this is a guy that has some athleticism, so I don't want to completely discredit him. So Elijah Higgins, like, he's going to slide in right under Tucker Kraft for me. So tight end 23. So again, like, you probably don't need him. There's a bunch of guys I tossed out there already. Zach Ertz, Tyler Conklin, Noah Fant, Mike Gesicki, Brenton Strange, who scored in back-to-back weeks, I'd probably play over Elijah Higgins. But if you're desperate and you feel like you'd rather play the matchups, well, yeah, this is the matchup to go ahead and target, is how I feel about that. So that's the biggest tight end note. We already talked about Bowers being the maybe number one passing attack. Sam Laporta is expected to play. He returned to practice. I know he hasn't been the Sam Laporta of last year, but it's so tough to bench the guy you spent a third, fourth round pick on. So someone just I would get him in my lineup at this point. George Kittle will play. Absolute smash in this game against the Patriots. There's another reason. The title question here: do you start Deebo Samuel, Jauan Jennings? I don't know that you can go to Jauan Jennings. I wanted to kind of use this nugget. I don't know if you guys have Jauan Jennings questions. Get him on in here. He is wide receiver 35 for me, so it's not impossible to play him. But I think a lot of the work he got was where you normally see Kittle eating. You normally see Deebo eating. If both those guys are back, it's like, oh, man, can you really, really trust Jauan Jennings? So I haven't really fully bumped him down yet, because I'm just, if one of those guys is out, he still is relevant. Hell, maybe he's even more relevant than Ayuk at this point. But with both those guys expected to play, I'm bumping Ayuk down. I know I even answered a question. I want my questions to match it. I'd rather have Rome Odunze. So I'm going to put Ayuk down to wide receiver 27. I'm going to put Jauan Jennings down below Michael Wilson at this point. The number one receiver performance of the year. Like, I get it. 12 catches, 45 fantasy points. How do you bench the guy, Wolf? Again, the two biggest reasons that happened were Deebo and Kittle being out, and both guys are expected back. He's a baller, though. Like, I don't discredit the fact that he could do it again, and maybe he comes at the expense of Ayuk at this point. But I'm bumping him down to wide receiver 38. Still playable, but certainly you got to get some pause here on Jauan Jennings, whether you get him in there or not. And then last nugget on tight end is Evan Ingram is out. Definitely we saw the first reads now get funneled over to Christian Kirk. 30% first read share. He definitely got a nice bump up. Brian Thomas, 9 targets. He gets a nice bump up as well. And then David Njoku. Week 4, he is out. Obviously, you know at this point you don't play Jordan Akins. You don't play anybody in this passing game until JMO takes over. And a few defensive notes. Jair Alexander is questionable. That's definitely one to watch. Justin Jefferson routinely gets the better of him anyways, but it's that much better of a matchup should he be out for everybody involved, including Sam Darnold. if he's out. Trent Williams is also questionable to play, was not moving well at practice, according to the reports. That's a huge piece for this 49ers team, but I don't think it's going to really matter against the Pats. And then Michael Mayer, as we mentioned, is not playing for the Raiders, which opens up Brock Bowers for 90% plus of those routes. Alrighty, guys. That wraps up all the news and notes. I know it took a little longer today because we had so much generous super chatting going on. Thank you guys again so much for all the generosity. The next hour is dedicated to you. Of course, if you need to cut the line, you need to get in and out, the super chat over on YouTube is the way to do it. Thank you again so much for being here. The first question of the day goes to JC. Let me just catch my breath and get a quick swig of water here, JC. Dalton, Goff, or Fields for my man JC here. I love that Dalton's even part of this question. He should be. He's earned it. I'm going to go Goff. I feel like the Seahawks, it's a good defense. Mike McDonald has certainly helped turn them around. But at home, Goff is great. I don't know that they've been truly tested quite yet with the schedule the Seahawks have had. So I think Goff is the play here, the safest option. Fields, you got, again, we talked about most rushing yards allowed in the league right now are the Colts. Should play in the field of strength. Wouldn't be shocked at all to see him run in a touchdown. But he's been outside the top 70. He's been quarterback 19, quarterback 22, and quarterback 12. Like, we just haven't seen the same ceiling because they just really slowly bleed you out. Let the defense, continue to make plays. If he gets 2 rushing touchdowns, then yeah, of course Fields ends up getting there for you. But we haven't seen that type of vintage performance quite yet, and it doesn't seem like they're ready to fully unleash him. So I go Goff there myself, JC. We have hit the 1,000 viewers live. We're at 1,003. Love to see it. Thank you guys so much for all being here. So greatly appreciate it. That's now 4 weeks in a row. We have hit 1,000+ live viewers on this Sunday morning stream. Thank you again so much. And if any of you 1,000 like what you're hearing, the thumbs up button really does help us. I know I sound like a annoying little nag saying it, but it does help the algorithms. It gets us out to more people. It's so greatly appreciated. Let's continue rolling forward with my man Krana. Happy Football Sunday. Like and subscribe. Everyone, love to get all you new people sub. That'd be awesome. This man is awesome. You're awesome, Krana. Bears going to smash Caleb Dewell 24-17. I have the Bears in my pick'em pool, so I'm with you, Krana. No McBride. Options are likely Schultz, Muth, Conklin, Ertz, Gesicki, Elijah Higgins, or Parkinson. I definitely got to go Dalton Schultz here with no Tank Dell. We've seen him when he's like the number 3 option in the pass game, average right around 15% of the targets, get a little more red zone work as well. I'm a big fan here of Schultz of all those options. He's a tier above all these guys, in my opinion. Flex 2, PPR, Jennings, Shakir, Trey Tucker, Dortch, Michael Wilson, Cordell Patterson, or Spears. I definitely go Shakir. He's actually my favorite by a mile here. And it becomes like Michael Wilson versus Jennings is the question here. Now, the good news is, Connor, you can wait till 4 o'clock because both those guys play there. If either of it seems like Kittle's a lock to play. But if Deebo does get ruled out, then yeah, you can go back to Jennings. He's going to be an every snap player. My rub with Jennings, though, is they run 2 wide receiver sets at one of the highest rates in the league. They do not get 3 wide receivers out there often, the 49ers. And so if Deebo's in and Ayuk's in, is Jennings even going to see the field is the risk here. He'll get in there every now and again on third receiver sets, but like it becomes a huge risk. And it's crazy like to see a guy go from a 45-pointer to like not even on the field. But that really could be what it is. Now, it could also be Ayuk's in the doghouse and Jennings plays ahead of him. And so you don't drop Jennings. If this is a matter of like I have to drop Jennings to pick one of these guys up, don't do that. Because we could see him actually leap over. We've seen Ayuk get put in the doghouse for like, who was the guy? If anybody in the chat can name it, like without looking it up, I'd be super impressed. It was back in like 2020 maybe or 2019 where Ayuk was like benched in week 1 unexpectedly. Nobody reported on it. And it was like a like River Craycraft or it might be that. I'm not positive, but it was a ridiculous name that he was benched for. So that's a trivia question of the day. Let me know if you guys can figure that one out without looking it up. Who was Ayuk put in the doghouse and started over him? That's all to say, though. It wouldn't shock me if somehow Jennings ends up leaping over Ayuk, the $30 million man. It would be shocking, but not all that shocking is what I'm getting at. But Shakir's the clear lock to me, and Michael Wilson is where I land, assuming that Deebo is in. Adunze or Mooney, definitely Adunze, not even close for me here. And Monty or Dobbins, I got to go Monty here. Both tougher matchups, but go Monty, go the better offense. The guy's just rock solid week in and week out. Deontay or Pollard for the flex. I'm definitely going Deontay. That one's not much of a question for me. And Steele or Bucky Irving. With the hamstring thing, I'm probably going to go Carson Steele. Be interesting to see what the performance is for Kareem Hunt, what the usage is for Kareem Hunt. But I'm going to go Carson Steele there. Daniels over Burrow and Hurts. 6 pass. I'm definitely going Daniels myself over both those guys. Yep. And Kamara or Brian Robinson. Got to go Kamara, and I love Brian Robinson this week. But Kamara, I mean, he's like Christian McCaffrey in this Clint Kubiak offense. That he kind of said it in the preseason. We didn't pay attention to it nearly enough. And it's what we're getting. He's a beast. He's used in the pass game, the run game, the zone scheme is unleashing him even more. So I'm a big fan of Kamara. As much as I like B-Rob this week. Like, I don't know how you don't have both those guys in there. It depends on who your other running backs are. But, man, like I feel like you got to get B-Rob in there somehow. But, hey, then we got Trey Tucker or Watson. I'm going to go Trey Tucker. I think I trust him more than Watson at this point. And then Metcalf or London. Definitely Metcalf for me. That guy is absolutely cooking. Great matchup against Detroit as well. Keep it going with DK. My fellow teacher man, Eric Buckman. Good to see you, brother. Flex, Jacobs, Stevenson, or Kirk. I'm starting All and Dobbins at running back. Starting All, you probably mean Hall. I'm going to say that's probably Breece Hall. I kind of figure out your typos here. I think you mean Breece Hall is what I'm guessing. So, yeah, of course you're starting Breece Hall. Now, I don't know that Jake Dobbins is the lock-in starter here. I would say I'd have Jacobs locked in at running back, although I'd still probably go Dobbins too. I think you're starting Hall, Jacobs, and Dobbins of these options. I don't want to go to Ramondre until I see a little more life from this Pats team. Ideally, that's probably Drake May. Bringing it, I did talk about Kirk again having a great coverage matchup here, but it's really only been one good game out of the guy. So I'll go with the league leading rusher in Dobbins. I like Jacobs a lot. He's like top 3 in rushing yards. And, of course, Breece Hall. It's in your lineup. Parkinson or Higgins? I'm going to go with Parkinson. Ran every single route, played every single snap. Didn't get the touchdowns to bounce his way. But, again, I don't know. This Higgins guy is getting the hype. Like, it's tight end. So, you know what? Wherever you're going to take a risk, you can take it. But I like Parkinson. We know he's going to get the field time. That's where I lean. I need 2 flex full PPR for my man Tunes. Braylon Allen, Michael Wilson, Shaheed, P. Ryan, Waddle, Yoshi. This is just like it's an appropriate question because all these guys are kind of that same pile, which makes it so hard to I don't know, who are your favorite? I'll tell you my favorite 2, but you can go any which way. The only one I would say is not in this pile is P. Ryan. I think P. Ryan's done. I thought he was going to be the guy. He wasn't. Carson Steele got way more work. Now you got Kareem Hunt coming in. I don't think you even have to hold P. Ryan. I hope that Waddle ends up becoming – we only need one more flex because Waddle's the locked-in one out of every week, but I still don't know with Tyler Huntley that we can guarantee that yet. I think Braylon Allen's my favorite of this group. I think he gets a lot of mop-up work against Denver this week. Big fan of him. And it's hard not to go Shaheed, right? With Olave, whether he's in or out, he's banged up, you got to think they're at least crafting a bigger role for Shaheed, who has been – no, last week 0. It's pretty – infuriating, but he had 2 touchdowns right there. He just barely missed them. So I'm going to go Allen and Shaheed. Now, if you do need a little bit more juice here at Tunes, I do think Michael Wilson has a little bit of a higher ceiling than Braylon Allen. It's similar, though. We saw Braylon put up 19 points a couple weeks ago. I feel pretty good about the ceiling floor combo of Braylon. I do think Michael Wilson, if any of these guys blew up, and we look back and damn, this guy had 100 yards, touchdown, 8 catches, that's probably Michael Wilson of this group. But if I was faced with this decision, I would go Allen and Shaheed in most cases myself. Yoshi getting the touchdowns each and every week. You can't even discount him either. But I would rank them Allen, then Shaheed, then Wilson, then Yoshi is how I would go. And I'd wait and see on Waddle myself. So cue the Waddle Monday night blow up that you miss. But that's how I go. We'll see, Tunes. Let me know what you end up deciding. I'm going to go Ertz, a little bit safer than Parkinson. Neither have a good ceiling, so go with the floor there with Ertz. Happy PR, need a flex and running back. A revenge game for Ertz, too. Revenge day, baby. Let's go. Eat my breakfast while we go live here. Scrambling this morning. Happy PR. Need a flex and a running back, too. Ford, Pollard, Higgins, Reed, Jennings. I would say, we did see Ford get that running back roll back. Nearly 80% of the touches. Raiders do give up the second most points to backs. Pollard is coming off a bad day, and he had a decent matchup there against Green Bay too. I kind of like Ford. I was like, I hate looking at my rankings. I want to go off the gut. I was like, where do I have these guys? I had Pollard 23, Ford 24. Literally neck and neck. I'm switching that, though. I like Ford more this week. So I'm going to bump up Ford there into my running back 23 and play him ahead of Pollard. That all being said, though, now you need a flex, and I got to go Jayden Reed. We talked about it earlier, Jordan Love back, and maybe it is a little bit of a mix, but 19.9 points over his last 9 games with Jayden Reed with Jordan Love, rather, for Jayden Reed. He's a beast. He is such a monster with Jordan Love in. I got to go with that upside. I think this guy's just a stud, too. I love the player. Tien Nguyen, bench 1, half PPR. Deebo, Tyreek, or Ken Walker. I'm going to bench Ken Walker there against the Lions. Komet over Andrews, 100% for me, Tien. And again, this is where Andrews, I made a tweet last night that I cut Mark Andrews, and I actually did this in one of my leagues. I cut Mark Andrews to send a message to the fantasy locker room. The guy ran 4 routes, 1, 2, 3, 4. I just counted how many routes in. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it's happening. I loved Mark Andrews coming in the year. I did draft him on a few teams, and it's so disappointing to see. But I just don't see why at this point what Isaiah Likely, what does Andrews do better than Likely? The run blocking, Likely was the one out there last week. Route running, Likely's more dangerous after the catch and better down the seams. Where does Andrews fit in here? If Likely has an injury, that's really the only way I think I could see myself trusting. This will be the week, though. I do think, if you have the bench space, you don't need to cut Andrews. I really needed to actually pick something up. That's why I dropped Andrews. I had Andrews and Likely. I was like, I'm not going to keep both these guys. I got to get rid of one of them. And it was Andrews. If you can hold on to it, though, this is the type of game script. You're facing the Bills. They're likely going to push you. If Andrews does not do it today, I'm just trying to get ahead of the curve, though. So I feel like we keep saying, Andrews doesn't do it in this match. So when are you going to – this is the one, though, right? If they are getting pushed by the Bills, they have to throw, and Andrews runs 10 routes and sees 1 target. Yeah, what's the point of having him? So either way, though, I'm going Komet. Rams are a great matchup for tight ends for anything. Giving up the most plays per whether it's a rush, whether it's a pass, they're a 7 of a defense. So I'm going Komet either way. Coming off a huge game, and I know Keenan's back, but I still feel okay about Komet. My man Giuseppe Russo. Happy Sunday to you, brother. With Adams out, do I start Amari Cooper or JMO? I don't know. Oh, I guess you're probably saying one of these guys has to now step up for you. So I don't know if Adams impacts either of these guys, but it does maybe impact who you have to put in there. I'm going to go Amari Cooper over JMO. I was real disappointed with JMO last week. What do you have, 0.7? I thought we had balanced it out, and I do think we're going to get more steadiness than what we had last year. Again, the 9, the 11 targets those first 2 weeks. Love what I saw. But then he goes and disappears. It's a good secondary he's facing. It's a Mike McDonald a coach scheme that limits the big plays. I'm going to go Cooper. He's coming off a 24-point day. Let's ride that hot hand. It's not like the Raiders have anything scary on the other side. So I'm going to go Cooper there. Flex Monty, Chuba, or JMO. Oof, Monty versus, it's not JMO. It comes down to Monty versus Chuba. I feel like Monty's just baked in, 16 points. You got it. And I'm putting Monty in most cases here. But Chuba has the higher ceiling. There's no doubt about it. We saw 25 half PPR points last week. Full PPR, even more, 30, right? Became 5 out of 6 targets went to him. 17 of the first 20 carries went to him until the game got even more out of hand, which is crazy to say for the Panthers offense. Chuba's the guy until Brooks comes in. It's close. 17-19 for me, but I'm going Monty. Giuseppe Russo again. Flex half PPR. Pick one: Ladd, Dobbs, Akers, Javonte Williams, or Pirine. And again, I got a lot of Pirine questions, and this one I feel like it's a lot of my regular viewers here because I did say I thought Pirine was going to be the guy over Steele. I already waved the white flag. I already cut Pirine. I think I was wrong, and I don't want it to belabor the point and hurt your rosters. I think you can cut Pirine for a better stash at this point. Emmanuel Wilson, for example, I'd rather have on my roster than Pirine. Because it seems like at this point, even if Steele went down, he had 2 injuries in the backfield. Well, Kareem Hunt's going to be involved, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back. If they were ever going to trust Pirine as the feature back, I know he's capable of. We've seen it, but they didn't. If they ever were going to, it was going to be last week. And instead, we saw Carson Steele get 17 carries, but he got the carries. So I think Piran's cuttable. I don't see a world where he is usable. So cut him. Put Emmanuel Wilson on your bench. Put Michael Wilson. Get an upside. Trey Tucker. You can use your bench space better than him. Now, in terms of the flex, I would go Akers, assuming Mixon's out. If Mixon's in, we can't do that. And I would go, I think Javonte can be cut too, by the way. Piran's an easy cut. I think Javonte is an easy cut, and it doesn't seem like an easy cut. But I would cut Piran first. I would go, if Akers can't play, one, is Michael Wilson out there? Because I would go him over Ladd or Dobbs this week. If he's not, I would go Dobbs, I think. Because I do worry. One, Ladd's not even playing all the routes. But two, it's like if Herbert takes 1 to 2 big hits, like this thing could get aggravated. And then you're dealing with Easton Stick, and nobody wants to deal with Easton Stick. So, yeah, tricky question there. A lot of variables. I think Akers is the easy play if Mixon's out. But if not, it starts to get a little tougher there. I am bumping Dobbs up in the ranks here because he is the steadiest guy for Jordan Love. So I think he should even be above Christian Watson at this point. All right, Lamar, Jaden Daniels. Oh, man, that's actually a really, really tough one here. I'm going to go Lamar. I think they got to get pushed this week, so maybe get more running, more passing. But it's my QB 3 and 4, Giuseppe. You're killing me. Put me in a blender there. Kyler or Jaden? I'm going to go Kyler, getting that Washington secondary. I think that game shoots out, but I'd rather get the guy facing the Washington secondary on that side of things. And we did have multiple super chats I just saw coming in. Sorry for making you guys wait here. So we already hit Christopher's. We got the pickle. And then we have DeAndre Starks. Thank you so much, DeAndre, for your super chat. Much, much appreciated. DJ Moore or Tyreek Hill? I do lean Tyreek Hill here. You look at DJ Moore last week. He got that one tipped Hail Mary that fell into his lap, and he still only had a mediocre day last week. Without that, he would have had 6 catches for 30 yards, I think it would have been. And I love the player, but he looks so malcontent. He's not happy to be there. He had 8 catches for 78 yards. That would have been 7 catches for 45 yards. It was like a 50, maybe even less. It was like a 50-yard bomb. Now you got Keenan Allen back, so maybe that frees him up to do more of the deep stuff that he does better. But I don't know. To me, Rome emerges the alpha. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it looked to me like Rome is the captain now type of game. It's a good matchup against the Rams. It's certainly – I'm just lower on DJ Moore than the ECR this week and just in general because I don't love Caleb Williams, and I do think Rome might be the number 1 now. I have those guys 26 and 28, Rome and DJ Moore. So I would go Tyreek Hill. I think the upgrade to Snoop, like I talked about at the beginning, is not incredible. It's not amazing. It's not the savior I've seen people talk about, that it being. Only 200 yards in 3 of his 11 starts. 7 total touchdowns in 11 starts, 1 multi-touchdown day. But that's a different Ravens run game, the very run-dominant Greg Roman scheme. And this guy can get the ball out on schedule, and it just takes, get it to Tyreek Hill and let him do his thing. So I'm probably going to go Tyreek Hill here. DJ Moore could light up this Rams. The Rams team is abysmal. So if I'm wrong and this, Rome has taken over and it actually is still DJ Moore's the alpha, no team's given up more points to the wide receiver 1. So it's that risk reward. I think you're guaranteed some points out of DJ Moore, and he does have the blow up potential. So maybe I do just go DJ Moore here. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too low on the guy. That's a really good question, DeAndre. I don't like to look at my rankings. I want to answer them off the cuff. This is the 3rd time this has happened today, though, where I have Tyreek Hill 25 and DJ Moore 26. Moore is safer. I would go Tyreek Hill, though. I would. And then Pollard or Hubbard. I like Hubbard here. Again, guaranteed, 80 played when they needed their starters, 80% of the snaps, 15 to 20 carries, 5 of 6 running back targets. He was the clear-cut bell cow, and Andy Dalton changed the complexion of this offense. So I like Hubbard there, whereas Pollard is still in a clear-cut committee there with Spears. Thank you so much, DeAndre, for your super chat. Stephen Drake's every week coming in from the top rope with a super chat. Thank you so much, Stephen. Half PPR. Do I flex Chuba, Walker, or Deebo if he plays? I think this is one where I do like playing Deebo this week, but I would go for the safety of Chuba Hubbard. You got yourself 20 touches against a Cincinnati team that has given up the 4th most rushing yards in the league, the 5th most points to running backs in the league. Just a bad defense in general. So I'm going to go Deebo. And do you think Jennings still has a role going forward? I was mentioning this one earlier, Steven. It's so tricky because historically, Kyle Shanahan runs 2 receiver sets at one of the highest rates in the league. He loves his fullback. He loves Kyle Juszczyk. He loves having 2 tight ends at times. He does not play a lot of 3 receiver sets. Now, did Jennings force his way on the field now? And now we suddenly see Shanahan embrace more of a Sean McVay, like all I do is 3 receiver sets? It's possible. Jennings really did. It's so tough to envision a world where this guy had the single best game of the season so far for a wide receiver and then just disappears. But if it is in line with what Shanahan has historically done, which is 2 wide receiver sets, you don't play him over Deebo unless Ayuk is truly buried in the doghouse, which we cannot rule out. I just don't see where he fits in the typical sets. So once everybody is fully healthy, maybe this week Deebo is in and out with Jennings. I don't know. I don't know why you would do that against the Pats. Do you really need that? Probably not. So if Jennings is in, if Deebo's in, I think he's in. It worries me given the way he's historically used his receivers. I think he'll rotate in some, maybe he's a 40% snap player, but that's risky. That's how do you put a guy in that's only running 30-40% of the routes, We'll see. It would take a big offensive overhaul for Sean McVay to give Jennings a full-time role. So I do think either way, though, like what it boils down to fantasy-wise is like, do you still hold Jennings? And it's yes, because we've seen what happens if one of these guys is out. It did take him and Kittle being out, Deebo and Kittle. I don't think we'll ever get anything close, even if those guys are both out again. But like both those guys being out, I think played a huge role because I think Kittle would have done a lot of that damage himself had he been in. But I still think he's worth a wide receiver handcuff. There's very few that I think that of, and I do think Jennings is one of them. Then we got Rum coming on in. I love it. Need a floor, so you want safety. I love that. Ken Walker or Braylon Allen? To me, this may seem crazy, but I think Braylon Allen's the higher floor. I think the Jets handled their business against the Broncos, and we've seen Braylon Allen mixing in for about 40% of the snaps and touches, even in close situations. I think we get some nice mop-up duty at the end of the game for Braylon Allen against a team that's given up your top 5 yards per carry here. And there's some ceiling there. The guy had 19 points as the running back 6 just 2 weeks ago. He had more yards on the ground than Breece Hall last week on 6 less carries. I love Braylon Allen. I do. So to me, Ken Walker, 1, is he healthy fully? Probably if he's playing. But 2, is it still like a one-man show after Charbonnet showed really well? And 3, you got a Detroit defense that has just absolutely smothered running backs. So I think it's a big risk going to Seattle running backs this week until we see how the workload is distributed. And I think we need a softer matchup too. I'm worried about that setup. You guys are so generous. We're up to 18 super chats. You guys are the absolute best. Thank you so much for this. Tim Graham asking, Jordan Love versus Andy Dalton. Oof. I think I roll Love. I know the risk. Malik Willis might move in. Maybe he's not at full health. And so the floor is actually way better with Dalton, which is crazy. But yeah, the revenge game narrative, the only quarterback to throw for 303 this year. Actually, I think I'm talking myself into Dalton live here on the show because I do think there's quite a bit more risk to Jordan Love. And the Vikings defense is the real deal. They're going to get after him. They're going to blitz. He might take some bad hits. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go Dalton. Tim Graham, thank you so much for the super chat. But I love that matchup since he's a bad defense overall. The top pass rushers talked about yesterday. He's a bad hamstring thing he's dealing with. That's going to linger all year. They can't get after the passer. And this line is actually pretty decent. They were protecting well for Bryce Young. He just sucked. Andy Dalton crushed it. And the receivers were getting open. I think it's a well-designed offense. I think Canales is the real deal. He just needed the right engineer to his scheme. And Dalton is it. I'm going Dalton. And I'm going to make sure. I think I had him too low in my rankings, and I was already plus 4 or 5 ECR, but I feel really good about Andy Dalton today. Revenge game, baby. He's 2-1 against the Bengals, folks. Could he send the Bengals to 0-4? I think so. All righty, guys. For another one, no super chat here. You guys are the best. Thank you again so much for your generosity today. We're up to like $50, $60. That's incredible. Thank you again so much for being here. Jordan F. I got offered Pollard and Pittman for JK and McLaurin. Accept or decline? I smashed the decline button here. And the biggest reason is I think Pollard versus JK, pretty negligible. In fact, I prefer JK. I love that run scheme. I love the Roman offense. I know, a little more injury risk with JK. Like how Pollard looks too, though. But then I look at the Pittman for McLaurin. I don't want anything to do with Michael Pittman. The only scenario, the only path I see this guy paying out at all this year is if Flacco becomes the quarterback. And that could happen. We know the play style. It's a little reckless of Anthony Richardson. We know he missed a lot of time, missed most of last year. And we saw what Flacco could do for Amari Cooper once he came in. So I have a hard time dropping Pittman because I do think there's a world, like with Gardner Minshew last year, he was a top 15 wide receiver, an absolute target hog. But that's just not what the Richardson offense is designed to do. It's not what Richardson as a thrower. He's more accurate. I saw this stat. He has like a 65% completion rate on like 50-plus yard passes and like a below 50% completion rate on like passes behind the line of scrimmage and like 5 yards down the field. He just is so scattershot in the short game, but can rope those deep balls as good as anybody. It's crazy, but it's not playing into Pittman's game. I'll tell you that much. I do not trust Pittman at all moving forward. Whereas McLaurin, it seemed like they finally shook him free and moved him around a little bit. Cliff Kingsbury did. And we saw the results. And Daniels is just continuing to come into his own. So I much prefer the JK and McLaurin side of this Jordan F. Thank you so much for the super chat. And Meek Hill, always coming in with a super chat. Thank you again so much, Meek. Need 2 receivers today, DJ Moore and Terry, or T and Jacoby. I mean, so do we – I don't know if this is a trade question. You're like getting 2 of these guys to keep forever, or if it's like, do I pick 2 of these 4 guys? Because I don't know why it's like DJ Moore and Terry or T and Jacoby, why they have to be grouped. Now, if it is a trade and like you're choosing which 2 you want for the season, and those are the 2 you're starting today as well, I prefer the DJ and Terry side. And in fact, I probably prefer both those guys anyways today too. Jacoby T's the distant 4th here. And again, he could blow up. There's no doubt about it. It's T. Higgins. I haven't seen it in a long time. I don't trust the guy until I have to. Jacoby, I really think is going to vacuum targets this week with no Devontae Adams. So he's in the conversation. But yeah, I think DJ Moore and Terry are definitely the plays. You got the best possible matchup for DJ Moore. No team giving up more to wide receiver ones. Again, whether that's Rome, whether that's DJ Moore, I think it's going to be a big telling point today. Like this could continue. The Rome is the clear-cut guy. Rome could also just have like 1 catch for 15 yards. It's like, damn, I just got a little ahead of myself, and that was some garbage time for him. But I do like what I saw from Terry. I think that's a great matchup against Arizona. I like that they moved him around a bit more. Kingsbury finally learning something, it seems. So thank you again, Meek Hill. And for everybody, again, 18 super chats. So generous today. Very, very appreciated. No doubt about it. And we had left off, again, Kyler or Jaden Daniels, and Tunes was saying, don't throw up. Polk, Tyler Johnson, Demario Douglas, little Jordan Humphrey or passion. I am going to throw up, Tunes, and then I will get to your question here. But no, I don't even know. I think Demario Douglas, especially if it's full PPR. And if not, I really do think Patterson is going to get about 30 to 40% of the work. And we know the guy can break a touchdown with the best of them. So I'd go Douglas or Patterson in that case. My man Campanelli reminding you guys to like and subscribe to Roto Street Journal. We go live 3 to 4 times a week for all your fantasy football needs. Indeed, we do. Tuesday waivers, Thursday sit starts, Sunday sit starts. We'd love to have you. 1,300 of you here. Please do consider that thumbs up button to help us continue to grow the channel, to continue to get out to more and more people. It is so appreciated to have you here, and we'd love to have you subscribe. Love to hit that 4,100. I think we might be approaching it by the end of this show with the numbers going up so far. Thank you guys so much. Our shade the moon indeed to 5K and beyond. Let's go. Now, we did get one more super chat, so let's dive on in here. Thank you so much, Cron7. Pick one, Richardson, Love, or Watson. 6-point TDs. I definitely got to go Richardson here, and I know that the 6-point passing TDs lowers it a little bit because it's all about the leg points with this guy, and that neutralizes it a bit. I want to see Love in if they are really truly getting Malik Willis involved, like they say they're gonna. Is that just gamemanship? Does he look fully healthy? If I get a good enough option to be able to see that, then I'd like to. And I think Richardson is definitely a good enough option. The dude had a 28-point day to start the season. It's a tough matchup against Pittsburgh, but I certainly don't like Watson. Never going to go Watson. I don't know. I would never want him on my team, and I don't ever want to play him. He sucks. So it comes down to Love or Richardson for me. And if you did feel like, hey, let's go with Love, let's roll the dice, that's okay. I totally get it, but I'd go Richardson myself. So much leg point upside there. So that's where I am going. And then 3 sticks. You guys, again, so generous. We've now hit 20 super chats. That might be a record here, folks. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Delon, probably Drake London. Please do. Like, this is, I appreciate the super chat so much, so I don't want to bash you, but like, Dijon, I'm going to guess who these guys are, but like, I'm not going to try to like sift through the comments to try to find out who they are either. I appreciate, again, the super chat, but I'm assuming this is Drake London, Worthy, Roma Dunze, Deontay Johnson, Braylon Allen is what I'm guessing. I don't know. Keenan Allen maybe, because they're all receivers. Either way, to me, the clear-cut number one of these guys is Deontay Johnson. If Dijon is in 3 sticks. I love Deontay Johnson. 14 targets last week, 50% of them first read targets, 5 out of 6 end zone targets went to Deontay Johnson, so the day could have been even bigger. Love him. And then you got the motivation for Andy Dalton against the ex-Bengals. So I'm rolling with that one. My man, Texas Hustler, thank you so much for the support. Always out in Dallas, tuning in. Let's go, baby. I need 2 for the flex. Jennings, Steele, Akers, Charbonnet. Worried Walker's back. Have Flowers and JMO for receivers too. So I'm assuming you're starting Flowers and JMO, and those aren't options in this question, because those would honestly be my favorite 2 options here if they are. Now, I will say this. Akers is far and away the number 1 guy here if Mixon is out. If Mixon's in, this gets even tougher. But let's play, okay, Akers is in because Mixon's out, and then we got to pick the next closest one. I honestly would probably go Steele here. I think they're going to get up big against the Chargers and just be bleeding clock all day. Maybe not. Maybe Harbaugh keeps it tough, but I agree with you. One, the matchup for Charbonnet is horrible. Then Walker comes back. Like, there's a very real world where it's week 1. Walker played nearly 70% of the snaps. He was nearly 80% of the snaps till he got hurt. So there's a world where we don't see Charbonnet touch the field in a bad matchup anyways. So yeah, Charbonnet, I don't touch at all. He's definitely the furthest on this list for me. I'm going to go Akers and Steele, assuming that Mixon's out. Now, if Mixon's in, I go Steele and Jennings. And Jennings worries me too. We talked about it. 2 receiver sets. Is he really? Where does he get the field time? So many of his looks were where Deebo and Kittle would do their damage. I would at this point just trust that like Shanahan recognizes that he has a real talent. Maybe IU gets a little bit of his workload eaten into. Maybe he just goes to 3 receiver sets more and he just plays Jennings. But like there's a lot of risk of low field time for both Charbonnet and Jennings. I'll go for Jennings because we just saw humongous upside out of the guy. But right now, as of right this second, I would go Akers, Steele, Jennings. Again, assuming Flowers and JMO are not options in this question, they're already just locked into your lineup. Because otherwise, I'd have those guys above both of them myself. PPR, Flex 1, Higgins, Amari, Pickens, Najee. It comes down to the 2 Steelers, right? Najee, nice floor. You're going to get probably 18 to 20 touches against the most generous run defense in terms of rush yards allowed. They suck, the Colts. But then you get the secondary that is also one of the most generous allowed, especially 2 big plays. And they play a coverage that Pickens has historically destroyed. But does Arthur Smith actually throw it enough to really make that matter? Becomes the risk. I think this is a Pickens blow-up day. I just expect huge things out of Pickens, like one of those classic 5-catch, 120, 2 TD days. Like, he's overdue for it. He's played really well. All the underlying metrics show that this guy is killing it right now. So I really like Pickens. And in most situations, I think I'm going to go. That all to say, Najee's definitely the safer play. Like, you're going to get 12 points from Najee today. He's going to run for 75 yards. He's going to catch 3 balls. He's safe. And so if you just need that floor, Dylan, you just want to bank on it, I get that. It's totally fair, especially if you're in like an even matchup or a heavy favorite. Yeah, Najee's probably the smart play. But man, do I love Pickens to blow up today. Like, if you're an underdog or worried about who you're facing, I think Pickens goes bananas today. I would say Higgins is not even in consideration. Amari's, you got to give a little thought to, but I go either Pickens or Najee, depending on your needs. Floor is Najee, ceiling's Pickens. I probably go Pickens because I'm a ceiling whore and I love to chase it, baby. Tim Graham, PPR, need 1 receiver, 3. Leggett, Deontay. Thank you guys again so much. So many. We're up to 24 super chats. You guys are so dang generous today, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you so, so much. And 1,300 a year. Let's go. Deontay Johnson, Luke McCaffrey, Romeo Dobbs. Oh, man. We are in the – I mean, it's Deontay Johnson. Like, I look at all the other options. He's like 15 tiers above all these guys, Tim Graham. It's not even close. We've already kind of gone through the spiel, but just in case you were just getting here, 14 targets, over half of those, nearly half of those were first read targets. Like they're clearly designing this offense around Deontay. And finally, we had Dalton able to get him the rock. Had 5 out of the 6 Andy Dalton red zone or end zone targets. So his day could have been even bigger, just barely missed a second touchdown day. He's clearly the guy for me here. Now, if it's like you need another one, because again, it's like a typo. It's like Deontay Johnson should never be in the same sentence as those guys. My next man up would be Romeo Doubs, pretty clearly over Luke McCaffrey and Leggett, who are exciting rookies, good stashes, but we've seen nothing out of either guy yet. So Doubs, we at least know, leads this team in routes. He's the lead target earner for Jordan Love. So, yeah, if it's a second option, it would be Doubs. But Deontay Johnson is head, shoulders above anybody else in that question. Hey, I read it right. There we go. So I read it right, though. No need to apologize. And again, I don't mean to be a jerk about a super chat. You're so generous to even super chat me. I'm glad I got it. That's the second sense. Maybe it could be a quiz, though. Every week, 3 Sticks comes in with a weirdly worded crypto for me of the names, and I figure it out. Absolutely, Deontay Johnson, definitely the play there, 3 Sticks. And then OT Stacks, McLaurin, B. Thomas, Lazard, Olave, or Coleman. Thank you again, all you guys, so generous with these super chats. 25 of you here. Let's go. I'm going to go, I think McLaurin here. Again, I love what I saw out of them moving him around a bit more and not playing that static X role that we're so used to. It wasn't like amazing. It was only a handful of motion routes, but like his touchdown came on him motioning inside, and then he knifed through the defense because he suggested to his coach that they try that out, and it worked. We got to imagine they do that even more. They said before the game they're going to try out more moving McLaurin around. They stay true to the word to a degree, and I think it can be done even more so. And I love that game. I think it shoots out. So I'm going to go McLaurin. The next closest for me would be B. Thomas. I don't want to trust Olave today with the hammy, with the potential flare-up. It makes me nervous. And he might not even play anyways. So Thomas would be the next man up for me there, OT Stacks. And then Mr. Pilot, a $5 super chat. Thank you again, guys. So generous. PPR 12-man, start 1. McConkey, Mooney, or JSN. Keep in mind, I'm also starting Metcalf, Rice, and Neighbors. So I would go of these, especially with, you already have Metcalf in there. I mean, one, amazing wide receivers here. I would honestly, one, suggest, like, could you get Michael Wilson? Because I have him above all these guys. But 2, I totally get the desire to avoid playing 2 Seahawks. Detroit's a secondary you could target. That game could shoot out. I don't like JSN right now. You got that 16 target day, and then we get 3 targets to follow it up. If he's not, I need to see some steadiness before I recommend him. Now, again, I have him the highest of these 3 guys, but I get the desire to not play 2 Seahawks guys. So Mooney's the next closest man for me. I don't love McConkey in the Chargers today with Herbert banged up. I could just see an early exit from him. So I'm going to go Mooney in most cases. He's been playing really, really well. It was one of my favorite waiver wire pickups of the week. Coming off, again, like 33% and 26% target shares, 7 and 8 looks, 16 and 11 fantasy points in half PPR leagues. So full PPR, you're talking even more points there. 18 and 15 full PPR points. So yeah, I think Mooney's got a nice floor. You got probably Lattimore going on over with Drake London too. So I like Mooney. He's really become what everyone wanted Kyle Pitts to be. And then the last wholesome noob, Mahomes or Jaden Daniels. I go Jaden Daniels 10 out of 10 times. Mahomes has not topped 20 fantasy points since October of last year. It's been a long time, folks. For whatever reason, I thought this was the year that they were going to get it on back, and the explosivity, the downfield passing is going to be emphasized. No, Kelsey's useless. Worthy's had his deep shots here and there, but like it's just they're winning. They don't need it, and fantasy-wise, it's not great for us. So I think Jaden Daniels, 28 points in 2 out of his 3 games. He's just the league winner this year, and he's in a good shootout style game. So yeah, I'm going with that one for sure. The last wholesome noob. Alrighty, guys. Thank you again so much for all your generous super chats. Guys, it is already 9:46, and I have to typically wrap these things up at 10. I got some open houses I got to go run to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up I'm going to set a 20-minute timer, so I'll go a few minutes over today for you. But yeah, so I'm going to go for the next let me get the timer here. I'm going to get to as many questions as I can in the next 18 minutes or so. So I'm going to find our spot here. And we were at Giuseppe. All righty. Let's start the timer here. Rapid fire starts now. Who do I drop for a kicker? Pirine, Dobbs, Akers, or Brown? I would drop Pirine, Giuseppe, for sure. Morning, brother. Can you help me choose 2 full PPR? Walker, White, Allen, Dobbins. I would definitely go Dobbins as my favorite here. And then I think I'm going Braylon Allen. If Bucky Irving's out, then White's the easy play. But I like Braylon Allen a lot today, Michael Lopez. You're welcome, brother. Should I start Jane Daniels or Kyler Murray? I'm going Kyler Murray, but man, I love having both those guys. Jeez, maybe you can trade one and get some value. By the way, guys, 14-10 of you while I start the rapid fire. One last plea for that thumbs up button to support your guy. This is the most we've ever had live. I love it. I'm so appreciative to have you here. A lot of new names in there. Would love to have you subscribe and be part of the Wolfpack. It would be so greatly appreciated. Any likes, subs, the shares, the retweets. 1,400, setting a record today. It's so awesome. So greatly appreciated. Thank you again so much for being here. Would love again to have you guys sub and join the channel. Should I play Deebo over Garrett Wilson? Wilson does have that brutal matchup against Sertain. I totally see it dry. But then there's risk of Deebo being a potential decoy, which I don't buy. I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't know. I mean, I probably would play Deebo over Garrett. I do not like that Sertain matchup at all. Kincaid or Goddard. I'm going to definitely go Goddard for sure. We saw him last week just absolutely eviscerate the Saints, became the clear-cut #1 option. Definitely a coin flip, as Brian Johncock suggests, between Deebo and Garrett Wilson. That's a tough one. Which tight end do I go this week, Kmet or Schultz? I like Kmet. I just love that blow-up. He finally ran 71% of the routes. It seems like that one thing they're doing well on offense is getting him the rock. We did get a super chat from Harry, so I am going to jump ahead on over to that. Full PPR, need 2. Taysom Hill, London, DJ Moore, or Deontay Johnson. 110% Deontay Johnson, my favorite here. And then I am, it's not Taysom, it's Tyreek Hill. The Taysom, same level. I'm going to go Drake London, though. The Lattimore matchup scares me a bit, but he is really coming to his own these past 2 weeks. Cousins seems like he's continuing to get better. I would go with that one. It is tricky, but that's where I am leaning myself. Alrighty, we left off with Keenan Allen. I'd say Kmet. So yeah, Keenan Allen's not out though, is he? I believe he's ruled in, unless something new happened today. Dry company. If he's out, definitely Kmet, but I still think it's Kmet myself. If Olave plays, do I roll with him? I'd go London for sure over Olave today. I do not trust that hamstring myself. Deebo and Wilson. That's a really tough one. Again, my gut's kind of saying Deebo right now because Sertain does make me nervous. King Retros, pick 3. DK, Evans, Shakir. So DK and Evans are locked in. We don't have to ask about them. And I think Shakir, I mean, he's become almost a set and forget to me in a shootout game against the Ravens defense, giving up 20-plus yards more than any defense right now. Yeah, I love it. What's up, Juan Pena? We need DJ Moore, Jennings, Calvin Ridley, Jaylen Naylor. Wandale is on the bench. I'm going to go DJ Moore for sure, is like head and shoulders above these other ones. And then I'm going to go Calvin Ridley. And then for running back, just don't ask about Breece Hall and Kyron Williams. Like, what are we even talking about here? You know those guys are in your lineup. That's a waste of time, Juan. I've already come at you a couple times about this. Like, you know better. You don't ask about Breece Hall, buddy. And then Jerome Ford, I would start in the flex. No, I'd go Josh Jacobs in the flex. And then I'm definitely going Kittle. Kittle or Kmet? Come on, Juan. What are we doing? Juan, you're better than this. You've been here for a long time. Don't ask about Breece Hall ever again. Or I'm not going to answer your question if I see Breece Hall in another one. I promise you. I'm going to just skip right over it. You're better than that, good sir. Thomas Radke, half PPR, half point for a first down. I love the half point for a first down settings. I think everybody should do it, by the way. Evans, Walker, Amari Cooper, Robinson, or Jones. Who do I sit? Oh, you guys just sit one. It's Ken Walker for me then. I think great options, Thomas. I was going to say, like, how do you not have all these guys in your lineup? I sit Ken Walker, though. The Detroit matchup, though, what's this backfield look like? That's where I go. Big fella, what up? Full PPR, need 2 to start 2 running backs. Dobbins, Allen, Irving, Mostert, Hunt. I think it's definitely Dobbins, and it's definitely Braylon Allen, assuming Rashad White's in with Bucky Irving. Now, if Rashad White gets ruled out and Bucky Irving's there, then you got to go with that. Should I start Waddle or Michael Wilson or Keenan Allen? Asks Nancy Story Trakeoff. I didn't know you were in our fantasy league, mother. I would definitely go Michael Wilson here, though. I do not like Keenan Allen. Maybe he gets it done, but coming off the foot thing, that seems like something that could flare up. I like to see what Waddle does with Huntley before trusting it. I think it is a boost, but like I said, I don't think it's a huge boost. A lot of people are making it out to be, and I love Michael Wilson today. No Trey McBride. Great matchup against the worst secondary in football. I think you got to roll with him. We did get another super chat. So the last wholesome Noop, Achan or Montgomery. Ooh, that's a great one here. The last Noop. The definition of a floor versus ceiling question here. I have a hard time benching Achan. I think the floor gets a little safer here with Tyler Huntley. So I'm going to roll with him. Oh, man. Montgomery, of course, is a bit more of a lock for like 12 to 15, but I can't put Achan on the bench. Tennessee's not a terrifying matchup. Huntley's going to bring a little bit more stability. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Achan there. It is close, though. It is very close. Then we left off with Ford or ETN, full PPR. I go ETN, but, oh, man, I'm not, like, super stoked about it by any means. Ford might even be a little bit safer there. Kyle Singer. Stevenson or Steele. I'm going to go Stevenson. Jimmy Bridges, one bad game does not make a season. And the 49ers, we saw them give 30 points up to Kyron Williams there. If Deebo doesn't play, are you starting Jennings over DJ Moore or Tyreek? DeAndre Starks. So the tricky part here is I believe the Rams game is at 1. So you're going to have to wait it out till 4 anyways to know about Deebo. So I think you got to play DJ Moore. And then it becomes, does Jennings go in over Tyreek with no Deebo? And I still don't think so, just because, again, Kittle will now still be there. It could be considered, but I would go Tyreek myself. So, no, I would not play Jennings over either of those guys, really, in any situation, it would seem today. Thank you again, DeAndre. I know that's your second super chat of the day, so I greatly, greatly appreciate it for sure. Femi the Lion, I traded CMC and Worthy for A.J. Brown and Charbonnet. I think that's an interesting deal for sure. I think it can work, but it's like damaged goods for damaged goods. We'll see how it pans out. I think A.J. Brown certainly due back sooner, though. Magic Mike, what's up, brother? Need you to work your magic. I got it for you. You got the magic too, though, my man. Full PPR. Chuba, I don't need to work magic. You got great options here. This is easy. It's Brian Robinson is the clear-cut lock here. Chuba versus Jacobs is a little trickier. I have Jacobs higher, but, man, I just feel better about Chuba in terms of the full workload and full PPR. He gets more receiving work, too. I'm going to go Chuba Hubbard over Josh Jacobs, especially in the full PPR setting, my man. Jeff, pick a tight end with McBride out. Komet, Gesicki, Ertz, Strange. It's definitely Komet for me. Huge upside last week, running more routes than we've ever seen than this year at least. Last year was a full route guy, but this year finally got a full share of them. I'm big on Komet here this week. Playing somebody who has Brian, Rob, and T. McLaurin. Yeah, I mean, good matchup. You got Daniels on the bench. You got to play. I think you got to play. I guess I'd play Lamar, and that kind of balances out the upside there. We did get another super chat here from Chris Dresserus. Thank you so much for your support here today. Half PPR pick 2. Akers if Mixon sits. Mooney, Quentin, Dobbins, Jacoby. I think Dobbins is a lock, and if Mixon sits, then it's definitely Akers in a great matchup. If he's out, you got a great fallback plan in Jacoby. I think he's going to vacuum targets here. This is the risk, though. Does he handle number 1 duties? I think he definitely can, though. I love Jacoby Myers. He's a great player. I think Dobbins, though, is my favorite. And then Akers, assuming Mixon is out, would definitely be a lock for like 15 to 20 touches against the Jags. Sign me up for that. But you do have a nice fallback plan there on Jacoby if you don't get him. So, yeah, I think you're set up pretty well there for sure. Harry Taylor, I think you super chatted this one already. I would not go Hubbard over Jay Taylor despite the good matchup. I just can't bench Jonathan Taylor myself. Goddard and Kincaid, somebody drop McBride. I think you drop Kincaid and pick up McBride for the rest of the season. I don't think you can drop Goddard, though, after these last couple big games. Jauan Jennings or Michael Wilson. I go Michael Wilson, assuming all those guys are in, assuming Deebo's in for the Niners here, Packer Mike. Deebo's out? Yeah, maybe you do consider Jauan Jennings. I would go him. But I'm assuming Deebo plays. Big fella, need 2 running backs. We just super chatted that one, and it was Dobbins and Braylon Allen, assuming White is out. Jay Ford in the flex or start 2, tight end, Goddard and Kincaid. I would go Ford over Kincaid in the flex, and I'd start Goddard. Raiders or Texans defense. I would go Texans for sure. I do not trust the Raiders defense at all. And they don't have Crosby, their best player. So, yeah, I'm going Texans defense. Love the matchup against the Jags. Starting Wilson against a Sartan. Depends on the other options, DM Rob. Like, he's still a great receiver, but I am absolutely nervous about the matchup. The more I think about it, I told somebody I'd go Deebo over him. And so I'm making the move and putting Deebo ahead of him in my lineups right now, my rankings. T. Higgins in my flex and super flex. Should I switch him for Jennings, Steele? Nah. I think I'd go T. Higgins over any of those guys, but is there no quarterback in super flex? Jennings would go in ahead of him if we knew Deebo was out, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Rudy, trying to find a flex, have Leggett, Braylon. I would go Braylon Allen of these guys. Braylon or Ridley. I remember you super chat that. I think I go Ridley for the upside, Braylon for the floor is what we decided on. If you had one flex player, Kelsey, Braylon Allen, or Zach Charb, I would go Braylon Allen. I don't trust Kelsey at all right now, and certainly don't trust Charb as the number 2. Ayuk or Flowers? Flowers for me, Nicola, no doubt. Superflex, Cook versus Baltimore or Kirk versus Houston? Definitely Cook myself. He's an absolute beast and dominating the work share there. Quincy Davis, need one receiver, 2 flex. Deebo, Jennings, Lazard, Myers, Bucky Irving, Braylon Allen. I'm going to go Deebo, I'm going to go Myers, and I'm going to go Braylon Allen unless Rashad White is out, and then you go Bucky over Braylon. Deebo or Deontay? It's Deontay for me. Just a bit safer and just as high of a ceiling, if not even higher at this point. Charb and Walker or B. Allen? I'm going B. Allen myself. Let's see how those Seattle guys come through. Was just food poisoning. White's good to go. All righty, so he's good to go, so that makes this easy. Thank you, Michael Lopez, for the update. I figured he'd be good to go. Bucky or Yosevich? I'm going to go Yosevich there, the touchdown machine there. Let's plant some trees. Andrew, Strange, or Conklin. I'm going Conklin. I'm done with Andrews. Swift is available. I do not like Swift. I'd probably just keep Charbonnet as a handcuff. I want nothing to do with him. Appreciate your feedback. Hey, thank you, Rudy. I appreciate your super chat. Thank you again for that. Joel, pick 2 and 2 flex. Diggs, B. Thomas, M. Pittman, or D. Mooney. I would go definitely Diggs and definitely B. Thomas. Easy for me there. And I like Mooney too, but those other 2 guys are tiers above. We do have a super chat, so let me pop on over to that. Black Jesus, full PPR. Who do I flex? Chris Godwin or Deontay Johnson? Oh, man, how do you not get both of these guys into your lineups? What a great question. I would go, man, I do lean Godwin. I'm such a Godwin truther. Avonte Maddox has been horrible as a slot corner this year for the Eagles. So I love Godwin. He's been the man. He's playing the Cooper Kupp role for Liam Cohen in that Rams-inspired scheme. Like, I'm just going to keep riding the Godwin gravy train. But, man, Deontay, like, I love him too. So, yeah, that's a really tough one, but I'm going to go there. Alrighty, we just left off with Quincy, and I would go Ford as the flex in that situation. PPR, need one. Lockett, McConkey, Ertz, Conklin, or Atwell. Oh, God. I'm going to go Lockett and go for the deep ball here. Geno or Fields in 6 point. 6 point changes it. I think I go Geno there. Cole K or Laporta. I'm going to go Laporta, but, man, it's close. Help for the NBA champs. Do I trade Gesicki, Jennings, and Pollard for McBride? Jennings and Pollard are both on my bench. Yeah, I would do that deal. Tight end's so weak, and McBride is the man. Conklin, Parkinson, Jay Smith, Henry, or Higgins. I like Conklin the most out of those lists. F. Hearns. Start Akers over Jacobs? I don't think so, even if Mixon is out. JSN, Pickens, or Jordan. I think it's Jaden Reed you're looking for. I'm going Jaden Reed for sure, and Pickens, definitely benching JSN there. Goddard or Bowers are the top 2 tight ends of the week. I have Bowers number 1, baby. Help me. I just liked and subscribed. Thank you, Jose. Awesome to have you. You need 2 solid flexes. I don't know if I could call guarantee solid, but I would say Shaheed, Odunze, Ayuk, Williams, Jamo, or Braylon Allen. I love Odunze the most here, and I'm going to go with Ayuk and just hope he finally gets this thing right. First was start 2, so you're leaning Myers and Dobbins instead of Myers and I don't like JSN. Start 2, full PPR, Olave, D. Johnson, JSN. I'm gonna go Deontay, and I guess I'd go Olave if he plays. I don't love JSN. I really don't. All right, I don't know what you're adding here for Santiago. Sorry. T. Hill, Godwin, Yoshi, Mooney, Thomas Jr. Got to bench one of these. I mean, you're not benching Godwin or Tyreek. Come on. Like, what are we doing, Seamus? I would bench Yoshi out of these guys. All great options. Yoshi did get you the win last week too. So it comes down to Yoshi versus Mooney, and I would bench Yoshi myself. Hope it's Roshan Johnson time. It could be. He's a good stash right now. I wouldn't trust him. Kittle or Gesicki. Oh, it's Kittle. So easily Kittle for me. Love that man today. Thinks Olave's on a snap coin, decoy. I think it's more about the risk of a re-injury. So maybe you go to JSN. It's a good matchup versus Detroit. I don't love JSN either. Hurts or Kyler, I definitely go Kyler myself. Wilson or Shakir, I honestly kind of like Shakir better than Garrett Wilson today. I think it's safer. Walker 3 or Jennings PPR. I'm gonna go Jennings, if we don't know what about Deebo, I think if Deebo's out, you go Jennings easily. And if he's in, I don't love Walker, but I think I would go him. I have Jordan Love or Caleb Williams for QB. Who do I start? I guess I would go Kyler over Lamar for sure. And I like both quarterback 2 and 3. How do you only have Jordan Love and Caleb in an 18? Like, I'd go Jordan Love, I guess. Wolf, Fields over Hurts today. No, Anthony. Start 2, DK, Deontay, or Deebo. I am benching Deebo in that situation. Rick, MTL Buff. TN, likely, or Schultz. I definitely go with Schultz in that case with the injury to Tank Dell. Next week, I'm going to need a bye week QB. It's a good idea to drop either Jennings or Garendo. Yeah, Garendo, no need for him. Because like eventually he's nothing if CMC's back. So yeah, I would drop Garendo. We do have another super chat. You guys can 33 super chats today. New record. Thank you guys so much. So generous of you. Shane Nealon saying if Deebo plays, him, Evans, and Harrison are my wide receivers for flex. Need 2 half-point PPR. Ridley, JSN, Irving, Brown, or Patterson. Fully agree with your 3 receivers. I think those 3 are head and shoulders above the other options. Now, I would go in a half PPR league, Ridley and JSN. I think both those guys have much more upside. I would have probably said Irving earlier in the week, but the hamstring worries me. JSN, as much as I am annoyed by him, the matchup is good against Detroit. I can't be upset about that one. And Ridley, 1 point last week, 23 points the week before. That's just the type of upside I'm going to bank on over like Brown or Patterson, who are clear distant seconds in their backfield. So I'm going to go with those 2 wide receivers for you. Thank you again so much for your super generous super chats, guys, today. This has been amazing. You guys, it's a record week, and it's so appreciated. Hold on. I'm trying to find where we had left off. That's one thing that super chats that made me lose my place real quick. And I know we were already at this one. It was under 2 super chats. Right. Seamus had asked his. Alrighty. So we left off here. When we said we go Murray over Hurts. Wilson, I do think. All right. So yeah, we left off. Sorry, repeating those defense this week. Raiders or Miami. Definitely Miami against Tennessee. They're pick 6 machines. Kirk or Jay Williams in wide receiver 2, or Jennings if Deebo doesn't play. I go Christian Kirk of those options. DJ Moore or Hill. I used super chat that one, and I said Hill. I'm going to stick to it. Cuppy. Need one from my flex. Who should I go with? JSN, Shaheed, Watson. I'm going Shaheed with Olave potentially out or banged up. Non-PPR standard, sit 2. JSN, Higgins, Deontay, Cooper, or Jauan Jennings. I'm going to sit Jauan, and I'm going to sit JSN myself. Flex, James Cook or Jauan Jennings. Definitely James Cook. Not even close there. Alexander, Schultz, Andrews, Gesicki, or Conklin. Tight end blows. It sure does. I think Schultz is the guy, though, with no Tank Dell. I think he gets his work ratcheted up. Conklin would be my next closest. I have them tight end 10 and tight end 11. I'm not going Andrews, though. You guys know I'm done with him. Maybe this is the coming out party. If he does it this week, this is when he should do it. But, yeah, I'm totally done with him. Braylon Allen, Shaheed, or Irving in my flex. Full PPR for Sebastian Rosero. I'm going to go Braylon. I'm going to go Shaheed, especially in full PPR with the upside that he could be the main guy. We did get another super chat, Tim Graham, Ridley or Wilson. I'm going to go Wilson at that point. Just bank on the talent. Hope he's enough to beat Surtain today. It's a tough one. We'll see. But, yeah, I don't know. This is the man, Chestnut Checkers, here from Reddit. Let's go. Hey, glad at least a couple of people from Reddit came on over the channel. Great to see you. I know a few of you mentioned you'd come in and say what's up. So great to see you, Chestnut Checkers. Awesome. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll make sure to get through. I have a minute left on the timer, so I'll get through a handful more of these here. And it's about to go off, actually. I have 15 seconds, but we'll do a handful more. I'm going to go Shaheed, given that Deebo's likely back, and Kittle definitely is back sharp racing. I'm going Goddard over Kincaid, no doubt for me. Pick 2, DK, Deontay, Deebo, definitely going benching Deebo of that one. Steele, Akers, Walker, got to start 2. It's benching Walker for me, unless Mixon's in, and then you bench Akers pretty easily. If White is out, should I start Braylon Allen or pick up Patterson? I would definitely go Braylon Allen. Even though Patterson is a desperation streamer, I think Braylon Allen's a good streamer this week. We already answered that one, Gabe. Please don't repeat your questions. Khalil Shakir or Jacoby Myers, full PPR. I'm sticking with Khalil Shakir despite loving Jacoby as well this week. Pickens, Keenan Allen, or Deebo Samuel. I'm going George Pickens. Deebo Pickens. I'm going to go Deebo. He's too dang good, and if he's out there, you got to play him. But there is risk that he sits, so maybe you just go Pickens and don't worry about it, is kind of how I feel. Pittman, Jay Myers, or Joe Mixon. If Mixon's in, it's Mixon. If he's out, it's Jacoby Myers for me. Eagles there. Pick 3, Myers, or Ayuk, Steele, Monty, or Achane. I got to bench Carson Steele out of that one. Myers or London. I'm going London. And does anybody know when Nick Chubb's expected to play? I know Schefter wrote about that today. I think it's like in another week or two. He's expected back soon. Non-PPR, Mooney or Kirk. Kirk. And T. Higgins or Jacoby Myers, full PPR. Jacoby Myers, the timer is going off. Folks, thank you again so much. 1,500 of you here on your way out. I'm sorry if I didn't get to you. I do have some open houses and things I got to go run to. So thank you again so much for being here. My updated rankings will be posted right after I sign off here at rotostreetjournal.com. So you can check out rotostreetjournal.com for my updated week 4 rankings. And if there's any other news, once the Mixon news breaks, once some of these other notes are tracking, if Deebo's officially ruled in, we will have that news for you, and I'll make sure the rankings reflect it. But on the way out, if you don't mind doing me a solid, that thumbs up button. Again, 34 of you super chats today. So generous. A record-setting day on that front. A record-setting day with 1,500 of you here. Would love to have some of you return with that subscribe button. It would be so greatly appreciated. I'll be live again on Tuesday for your waiver wire show right around 7 p.m. to get those rosters perfect with the best pickups of the day. But you can find me at Roto Street Wolf. You can find all our work at rotostreetjournal.com. Thank you again so much for being here, guys. So generous again. What a great Sunday. Best of luck. Week 4. Go kill it, everybody. In a world full of fancy sheep, guys, be the wolf. Give us a little thumbs up and a share before you head out. Thank you, guys. Later.